Howdy, folks.
Welcome in. Let's give folks like 30 seconds to watch any ads they might be stuck in. You look nice today.
Thank you. You look very sharp today. DenderMeowster looks very sharp today.
So does TransCapybara.
That's right.
We're just gathering our friends for a moment.
It's not every day that I get to get on the good shirts. You know, in this day and age of COVID, you know, I'm just lounging around my house like I wear like a shirt that I bought from Costco.
Mm-hmm.
I bought 4 of the same kind of shirts, so I don't have to think about what I put on every day, and I just put on the same shirt. Well, it's the same pattern. And sometimes I wear the same shirt over and over, but
I love it. That's inspired by what's his Apple guy, right?
There's a lot of folks that have done that. Steve Jobs has done that, where he had a black turtleneck. He had 70 black turtlenecks of the same exact kind in his closet. You just pull another one out. And Albert Einstein used to have just one thing that he wore every day. Just go get the next one. And he never had to think about what to wear because his mind was occupied on solving, you know,
big life world things.
Yeah.
There's one thing I forgot to check in with you about before we went live.
Okay, what would that be?
One of my redemptions is dance party, and if someone decides to redeem dance party, how do you feel about being on a dance party? Because you won't be able to hear the music because you don't need headphones.
I mean, everyone's gonna laugh at me, but I will allow this.
I mean, I can turn off the redemption so that people can't.
No, I think that's great. I think if people want to give us a dance party,
okay. I'll just put it on the speakers. It'll be chaos.
Sure.
Okay.
That's fine.
I'll leave that one alone then.
Or as I like to say, sure.
Sure. That's totally a thing you say all the time.
It is totally a thing I say
I love it so much. Miati to Mirami and Sunshine, thank you for being here right at the start. Appreciate you showing up. You'll be laughing, but it's going to be at my own silliness. I love it. I love it. I'm still trying to figure out how to do my 2-person setup, so if you see me fidgeting with stuff on my desk, that's what's happening. It's trying to figure it out. Sort of a creature of habit.
It's nice to see everyone joining in on the stream.
It's not over, Ghost. It's starting.
Yeah.
Also, can we call you Aqua? And also, congratulations on your new name and pronouns.
Absolutely.
Have some confetti. Oh my god. I can't even push these buttons right now.
I like the water reminder because it reminds me to drink water too.
Please do. Hail and welcome, Aqua!
Yay!
Aqua's new pronouns are she and her. Hello! Manny, oh Manny, welcome in everyone. We are just getting started in a couple moments here. We have a couple of questions for our AMA that have been submitted in the Discord. You can... Hi, Ian Richards. Welcome to the stream. Glad you're here today.
Hi, Ian.
Ian, can I tell Capybara what your username is in Discord? Because Cappy would remember who you are that way. I can also just mute the mic, I guess. Okay. I muted the mic, so now only us know.
Yeah. Hello.
There you go.
I know. We've had discussions before.
Have a good lurk. Thanks for lurking. Okay. Thanks for lurking. All right.
I do that too. I lurk. I have a day job, like doing software engineering, so I lurk a lot on stream. You've probably seen me do that.
Maybe before we jump into questions, we could do like a little intro. Like each of us do a little intro about who we are. What do you think about that?
I think that's great.
Am I springing surprises on you?
No, I like to spring the surprise. I like the improv. Like the improv is how I live life. I like that. So shall I go first?
Yes, please
okay,
do.
My name's TransCapybara in Stream World. I have another name, but I don't share it here. I work for a large hardware software company, and let's see, I came out as trans around, and kind of officially I came out as trans around August of 2013, but then went back in the closet for about a year, and then came back out of the closet around October of 2014, and then started HRT in April of 2015, and sort of went on my journey, got a divorce, kind of found myself, did a lot of therapy, and then found, kind of met up with DungeonMeowster around 2019, and we partnered up.
It's true. We did the classic lesbian U-Haul, didn't we?
We did. Classic. And by U-Haul, we mean our Subaru Forester. Which is...
Subarus are like the most lesbian of the cars.
They typically have a name that they go by, Lesbaru.
Lesbaru.
The Lesbaru. Yeah, that's totally me. I have the Lesbaru. Yeah.
What is a classic lesbian U-Haul?
It is a classic lesbian U-Haul. Yes.
Okay, that's totally a sexuality question instead of a gender question, but we're gonna take it anyways. So in the lesbian, there's tropes in all of the LGBTQ areas. Let me copy this question for myself. That's not how that works. It's a different keyboard altogether. I'm so goofy. That lesbians show up to the first or second date with a U-Haul because they merge really fast. There's the urge to merge thing that happens. And I think it especially happens with people who are estrogen based, because it's part of how reproduction wise it makes more sense for the person who is egg bearing to have someone around to provide and protect and do all of those things. And so when you get two of those people together, the urge to merge is strong.
Mm-hmm. It's like they fall hard and fast for each other, just immediately almost. And moving in is like second date, showing up with all your stuff. But
I would say we took it slow for lesbians.
We did take it very slow for lesbians.
For straight people, no. For lesbians, we took it slow.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to do it right. I think the sort of happens sort of earlier in life. The more earlier in life that you are, the faster you go. And then at my age, you go a lot slower because you just I can't fuck this up. So I took it really slow.
Hi, Mariah. Welcome in. Doing well. It's your first time catching a stream. Well, you're catching a very special one. Glad you're here.
Glad you're here. Yeah.
So fun. Okay, let's do our first question.
Sure.
TransCapybara.
Yes.
Can you tell us what is gender?
Oh.
Don't worry, I'll take a crack at it too.
Okay.
You have to do it by yourself.
Well, this is gonna... Okay, so to preface, let's just preface some sort of ground rules here before we start getting into things.
That's fair.
So I am a very open person. I will answer things as honestly as I can, and I'm a pretty honest person. I basically can't lie without people oh, you're lying to me. They know. I'll go as deep as I can, and I'll speak to my experience, but if things start getting into more of a very personal, too personal of a nature that I feel crosses a line for me, and I'll know it when I see it. It's kind of like the Supreme Court deciding what pornography is. I'll know it when I see it.
It was a joke.
It's a joke.
I got it.
Well, it's...
You know it when you see it.
Yeah, it's also true. The Supreme Court did that. So I'll call it out as this is getting... It gets too personal, but if you wanted to reframe your question, to reframe what you're asking, then I will try to attempt to answer it, because I feel like you're asking these questions for a reason. So I would like to give you an answer that doesn't like get too into the weeds. Like, no personally identifiable information will be given out. I will screen those.
Thanks for the subscription, Reaper. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Reaper.
Thank you for the sub.
And so I will answer to my experience. I will not try to speak for all trans folks because I can't. I can only speak to my own experience. So in my experience, what gender is it's what you feel like it's what you feel inside of your head. To me, it's like, I don't feel like a guy, and I never have. And so whenever I was living as a man, I felt like I never could live up to what a man was. Like, I had my father and I had my grandfather, and we like were I lived on a ranch, and we grew up in a very cowboy, very macho, masculine world, and I felt like I could never reach the point that they wanted me to reach. Like, they expected me to do things that were like completely foreign. It felt completely foreign to me, and it felt like all of the folks that were within that world were able to grasp the concept that they were trying to reach. Like, they would point to like examples like, why can't you be more like that guy? Why can't you be more like this guy? Why can't you learn how to rope? Like, I don't feel like I want to. Like, I like buttons and I don't like roping, and it just didn't feel good. And sort of as I grew up, I kept comparing myself to all these other guys that I saw, like even my best friend. And like, what is wrong with me? What's wrong with me? How come I can't be like this person?
You were different from the other guys.
I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I feel like gender comes from within. It comes from your own experience of yourself. I feel like other people try to impress gender onto someone else, but that never really works. It always has to come from within. Like, you feel like you are. I mean, seems pretty obvious, but yeah. That's my take on gender.
Okay. Seems like we've gotten into a couple of the questions simultaneously.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, they kind of bleed into each other.
It's true. It's very true. So my answer to the question, what is gender a social construct that dictates the way or ways that we move in the world. And just because it's a construct doesn't mean it doesn't have an impact. And so gender has to do with personal identity. It has to do with one person. And if you look around the world, so I'm speaking as a non-binary person. TransCapybara is a trans woman, which means you're like on the gender spectrum or the gender binary. You're going from one to the other. And for me, if this is the gender binary, I'm non-binary, which means I'm like over here somewhere. I'm like a complete third other like thing. And so so gender for me is about, it's your identity and the way you move in the world, but it also can have impact. Like, if I'm out in public and there's only a men's room and a women's room, I have this dilemma every time, like, which one do I use? Because I don't want gender related violence to be inflicted upon me and my body because I have to pee. Like, that's really stressful.
That is very stressful. That's true.
So I also wanted to clarify, so the next question I have here just on my basic questions list is, what is sexuality? So gender is about one person and your identity and how you present. So gender identity is how you think of yourself. Gender presentation is like what do you wear, how do you present in the world. So like today I'm wearing a binder to flatten out my chest, so I'm presenting more masculine of center than I normally would. And so sexuality is about two or more people. So we had a little cheeky talk earlier about lesbians and U-hauling and things. And so sexuality is lesbian, gay, bisexual, pansexual, etc. There's a whole array of the sexuality pieces. I would say our focus today is mostly on the gender piece, because I think a lot of people can talk about the LGB parts of things, and I think more discussion about trans, non-binary, and what are the differences between the two is important. So that's kind of where we're focusing today. Yeah, is there anything else you want to chime in on the what is sexuality question? Or how are gender and sexuality different?
Yeah, I mean, the gender and sexuality difference is, I mean, I'm going to touch on it in this way. Like, I think that there's a misconception that as a person comes out, like, say, like, I was a guy that had a wife, so I appeared hetero, had children, and then whenever I came out as a trans woman, my sexuality didn't change. I'm still attracted to women. I just now a woman. So I became instantly lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of, I mean, it felt like completely natural to me. Like, of course, I'm a lesbian, and I think, to go from a man to a woman and still retains one's sexuality, it was easy for me to accept the fact that I'm lesbian, but also that's not the same experience that I've seen other folks go from being straight to being lesbian either. Like, there's a whole like acceptance of oneself that happens. And I can only speak from my perspective on that. I've not experienced what that may be, but it's just as hard as coming out as trans, I would say, where you're facing persecution of who you love, basically. And so how I see sexuality is it's about who you love, and what does it mean to have a relationship or some sort of a relationship with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
They're different because they're different spectrums. Gender is its own spectrum, and sexuality their own spectrum, and they're, what I like to say, orthogonal to each other. Basically, they're what orthogonal. Yes,
that's a word I've never heard
orthogonal
before.
Means that they don't interact with each other. Like, they exist on their own spectrum, and one does not influence the other. So you can be anywhere along a spectrum of gender, but also you can be anywhere along a spectrum of sexuality, and you can be at any point anywhere. And this is why it's just like a huge multi-dimensional spectrum. Gender and sexuality exists on this multi-dimensional spectrum. Mm-hmm. That other things also exist in, with like gender presentation, and there's all these other aspects too.
Yeah, there's a really helpful tool out there relating to gender that I've seen done in like workshops or like classes on gender, and it's called Gumby.
Gumby.
And so you have like your genderbread person, like you draw sort of just a person-shaped thing, and then you kind of figure out where on the spectrum different pieces are, because you can identify one way and present another.
Yes.
So like for me, I identify as non-binary. Most of the time though, my presentation is like meh. It's like t-shirt and sweatshirt because that's cozy. And part of that is honestly because wearing a binder all the time makes my chronic back pain flare up even worse. And so even though wearing a binder would help me present in a way that feels more authentic to myself, there's this chronic pain piece that I'm navigating, and so most of the time I don't even bother. because I don't want to be in pain more than I already am. It's like burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. So when you draw the genderbread person, there's like on the head you have gender identity, so there's like a line that goes from the head, and you write what is your gender identity, and then you have like their little bow tie or their little shirt or their little outfit, their little dress, and say like gender presentation, and then you have the actual like physical sex of the person, which is a different thing. Something that I've noticed on like forms at doctors' offices that really bothers me is people ask for your gender, but what they actually need to know is what your physical sex is. And so they'll say, what's your gender? And then they give you 2 options, and it's like, ugh, there's so many more than 2.
Yeah.
So like more progressive medical spaces have added both. They'll have sex and gender, and you can define all those different pieces. And so it's like your gender is so much more than your genitals or whatever you have going on.
Right.
And so because gender is about social construct and sex is about like physical, like estrogen, testosterone, how you reproduce, that sort of thing. Which is also different from sexuality, which is a whole third other thing. Ooh.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I mean, it seems like those, like the doctor's office would be more inclusive there, but it's that inclusivity is, you know, it's coming. There's I see improvements that are happening, like the, you know, doctor's offices often use a piece of software that that represents your digital chart, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like a recent update to that software has added your pronouns and separated the difference of like what your biological sex is, because it does matter to a doctor's office. Like those with this biological makeup have certain parts that also need to be considered as far as your health goes.
Right.
But it's only for their purposes to know like what's inside of your actual skin versus what gender you feel yourself as. And so to treat people with respect, they have to add more things and refer to those things.
Because there's the social construct of how do I address you when I call your name to take you back to see the doctor, and then there's the physical, like how do we take care of your actual health needs? Yeah. So like for me, one thing that I've been curious about and don't currently have any good answers for is what does it mean for me being a assigned female at birth, so that's AFAB person. There's also AMAB, assigned male at birth. As an AFAB person, what does it mean to be thinking about like I need to be on like birth control for one reason or another, right? So I have like an IUD. And what does it mean to have that and also be considering HRT? And how does like the hormones that are in an IUD interact with possibly adding testosterone to my body? Because that's like really complicated. And there's not a lot of research and study that's been done on like trans men health issues. And I'm saying trans men because of the specific confluence of hormones that happen in that situation. Like I still identify as non-binary, and that's up here. But in terms of like what's happening physically for me, it would be a trans man health issue. Assigned being at born, says Skarionich. That's, you know who that is. You can figure it out.
I know who that is.
So person who is Scar Ionich in our chat here is actually the person who introduced us, and we got married because we met each other through you. So there you are. You have an intersex cousin. Funny you should say that, Ghost Owl, aka Aqua. 1 in 20 people born are intersex, which means 5% of the population are born with vague genitals. Yeah. And sometimes doctors will actually do some sort of surgery to assign a sex that is in alignment with the gender they think the child is, but I think they often do not do any sort of chromosomal typing. They just make a call in the birthing room because they're busy.
Yeah, I mean that had been.
So
I think it still goes on.
There's a movement to stop those surgeries and let people grow up and decide if they want that or not. Yeah. Because it can have a lasting impact on people's sex lives.
Yeah. So, and as far as my understanding goes, intersex also exists on a spectrum. Yep. Where you could have, you know, some traits and some not, and or maybe don't even have traits there. Um, also implies there's an erasure that happens for intersex folks because you're trying to select some biological sex and they're actually in between somewhere. No one knows. So there's an erasure that happens with intersex, and there's also an erasure that happens with non-binary folks that is fairly pervasive in the world. And just with more education and more knowledge and people coming out, that we can start to express these multidimensional pieces of our identity, so that we are able to be treated with respect, but also giving people the knowledge that they need to be able to help us, help us with our health, because trans health is a big issue. There's not a lot of doctors out there that are trained on it. It's really quite the thing. It's actually shocking. So to be a trans person, finding a good medical care is actually really important. To have like a primary care physician know how to treat your hormones and also to treat you with respect. And I'm thankful that I have one like that. There's folks like in different parts of the country and different parts of the world that have no access to this.
Yeah, I can say I just 2 days ago had a medical appointment at a facility and was misgendered a bunch. Like, people were like, oh yeah, we're doing this imaging on your abdomen, make sure you take off your bra and pants. And the fact that they assumed that I was wearing a bra was just like crushing, because my identity is like that I am a dapper dude, dapper person, like masculine of center person. And so in my mind I have this view of myself that I appear more masculine than feminine. So then to have someone just assume that I was wearing a bra and that I should, and that I was wearing a bra, that it had an underwire, and then I should have to take it off to get imaging was like really demoralizing. There were some other things about that whole situation that was weird, but that if that person was a little bit more educated, what they could have said is, if you wear a bra, or if your pants have metal in them, then take them off.
Yeah.
Because if someone with a beard and a t-shirt on came in, probably that comment about the bra wouldn't have been made.
Right. And
so it's like, I don't know. There's a lot of microaggressions, which we haven't defined what those are yet. Maybe that's when we can jump to. So here's a question. What do you mean by misgendered, and what are microaggressions? Do you want to start with that one?
Sure. So being misgendered, it is, in my experience of being misgendered, it is folks that will take, well, it happens in a couple different ways. Folks have taken one quick glance at my body frame, which is large. I'm 5'10", and a large person, just big shoulders and bones and things. They'll take one small glance at me and assume everything about me. So they'll sir me, and like, feels really bad to be just not seen, essentially. Talking on the phone, I have kind of a deeper voice, and so whenever I speak on the phone, I often have to say, like, I've got a deep voice, I'm actually female, please don't call me sir. And sometimes they won't even hear that I say that. Like, they'll sir me like later on in the phone call, like, I'm not a sir. My name's Justine. Well, my name's TransCapybara, let's say. And don't call me sir. And yeah, I call myself TransCapybara on the phone. It feels bad. It feels bad to be misgendered. It feels like I'm not seen. So I want to be able to be seen as female. I mean, this is the whole point of me dressing up. Well, I dress up female for myself, but also I want people to actually look at me. I want people to ask questions, and I want people to not assume what gender I am.
Hey, Ninquindo.
Hi, Ninquindo. What's your take
on what does it mean to be misgendered?
What does it mean to be misgendered?
Well, I think some really common examples, like you said, someone hears your voice on the phone and assumes your gender based off of the tone of your voice.
Yeah.
And so a lot of trans and NB people end up seeking either like a voice surgery, which you could tell us more about, or like actively change the tone of their voice, which that's just another like layer of thing to concentrate on. So it is exhausting to be genderful, shall we say, in all the myriad of ways, trans, non-binary, etc. It is exhausting to be genderful and in public, because the overculture tells us that there's only two genders and you start one way and you're that way forever. And so to be anything else, it's like I'm constantly holding up a shield to defend my identity while I'm like getting groceries, going to see a doctor, like just basic life things. And so it's really tiring. It's really tiring to be, you know, that way. So yeah, another example. And so, okay, so there's the misgendered piece and there's the microaggression piece. So misgendered is I would say a type of microaggression in a more broad sense. Microaggressions are examples of ways that people, perhaps unknowingly or unintentionally, have a negative impact on you, basically by not seeing and understanding you, being thoughtless with their language. So, I mean, a macroaggression is like blatant transphobia, right? Like, whatever. But there's this other piece where it's important to think about intent versus impact. So you may have a really kind, good intent, but your impact may still be not great. And so if someone, a genderful person, a person of color, etc., tells you that something you did impacted them in a negative way, you need to own the impact that you had on them without flailing around a bunch in the intention. Like, oh, I didn't mean it. Oh, I'm not racist. Oh, I'm not transphobic. Oh, I'm not blah, blah. And it's like, you know, I'm not saying that your identity is that way, but I'm saying you impacted me in a way that hurt. Mm-hmm. And so the best way to interact with that, because one of the questions I got was like, you know, I care about, you know, transgenderful people, but like sometimes I mess up and then I don't know what to do. Like, what do you do when someone misgenders you? And so it's like, you know, if you catch like a pronoun, for example, if you catch it in the moment, like if I say the wrong pronoun, then switching right then to the correct one and moving on and not dwelling on the point, because it's also exhausting for me as a trans person or a non-binary person to take care of you and your feelings about how you just messed up. Like, I don't actually want to do that emotional labor. I'm not getting paid for it. It's tiring. It's already enough to have the sting of someone misgendered me, and then to have to take care of you about your feelings about it is like right. So much. So yeah, own it and move on. Oh, we got another sub. Thank you.
Thank you for the sub.
I had my headphones on earlier and was hearing things. So we have to not say anything important until this goes away, because there's music happening when that goes off. And by music, I mean me singing. You'll probably play it in your mind.
Thank you very much for
oh, Rissa's Jarrett Biddies! Thanks for the bits, Rissa.
I am, yes.
And Farrah, did you just rate us also? I'm not paying close enough attention, am I? Sorry, there's like a lot of things to look at once here. Let's see. Insanity plea. Did anyone shout out Insanity when he rated us? And Scar Yonich? You were away from the computer. Okay, let's do some shout outs right quick. Thank you. Yeah. Shout out. There we go. Oh, woo! Give Rissa a shout out. Rissa had a great birthday extravaganza last night that no one can watch a VOD for because I'm pretty sure they got deleted, but it was very fun. Happy belated birthday, Rissa.
Happy belated birthday. Yeah.
Thank you for the resubs and everything, everyone. I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about?
Microaggressions?
Microaggressions. Yeah, deleted.
I
It
think
had
so.
to be there. Yeah. So own when you make a mistake, if you misgender someone, and move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's always something I find I do. I want to apologize and correct because I don't want to hurt anyone. So apology still negative. Well, Mariah, that's a good question. I think so. If I was talking about you and I said, "Oh yeah, Mariah, he's really a cool guy." Oh wait, I'm sorry. You identify differently. Mariah, she's really a cool person, and then move on. And part of that is like a short apology, like, "Oops, I goofed," or "Oops, I misspoke," or whatever. Like a little like five words or less, sort of a little something or whatever, that's fine. But if it's this long thing where it then becomes, "I'm so sorry, brr, brr, brr," and like we're just trying to have a conversation, it like weighs on the person who's been slighted because then you're dwelling in the mess up.
Yeah.
Which is hard. Do you have anything to add to the
Yeah.
misgendering microaggression experience? You who's about to drink water?
I get misgendered all the time, actually, out in public. And so usually happens when someone sirs me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll just quickly say I'm not a sir.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've seen people quickly correct it, and then we move on with whatever we talk about. I've seen people like sort of dwell on it a little bit, and that's a little awkward because I'm just like, just don't call me sir, there's also a problem with sir and ma'am because it erases non-binary people. So please take that into your professional worlds.
Mm-hmm.
There's other ways to address people with respect without saying sir and ma'am. These are called honorifics, and honorifics are kind of this binary thing where there's just sir and ma'am, and what's the honorific for a non-binary person?
Mixter or mix?
Sure, there's Mrs. and Mr. and then Mixter. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Ghost Owl says, "I prefer mix over miss."
Right.
So this brings up another piece that I see people in the chat sort of touching on. I think Rissa a moment ago mentioned using non-gendered words for things. So for me personally, this is my opinion. I don't know if this is every trans and non-binary person's opinion, but my opinion is if you default to they them for everyone until told differently, like it's probably better. Like if someone called you they even though your pronouns are she her, would it have a different impact on you than if someone used the masculine pronouns for you?
Oh, absolutely.
So if someone used they for you until they knew you were she her, you would feel good about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my personal experience.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if they were using they them pronouns, I would be like, great, they're not trying to assume a gender for me. That's good. I can then clarify it saying, "Oh, I use she her pronouns." So now I'm expecting that whoever to use she her pronouns instead of they them because I just told them what my pronouns are.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that. Like, once you know a person's actual pronouns, use them.
Well, also, there's some other pieces. So people's usernames on the internet can be really vague. And I think the default in gamer culture is to assume everyone playing video game is a dude. And just he, him, everyone. I can't tell you how many times someone has he, him'd me because they assume because I'm playing a video game or because I'm running tabletop role playing games that I'm a he. And so it's like, for me, that's part of why I want to continue to occupy the non-binary space, even if I get more and more like masculine of center as I go, because I don't want that to be the assumption ever. And I want to be in no person's land in the middle, because people deserve to have that option to be in between or elsewhere and not be erased. And so, you know, if I just assume everyone on the internet's pronouns are they, them until they tell me otherwise. Creech says, I'm always misgendered online in video games. Well, there's that only text or whatever. Voice chat makes it a bit easier. Yeah. Well, voice chat is harder for trans and non-binary people, because we just talked about that. But yes. Yes.
I do not like talking on the phone. So I think you had mentioned before voice, like things you can do to change your voice.
Oh yeah, tell us about voice surgery.
So I have basically done nothing.
To your own voice?
To my own voice.
You
like
took voice training.
I've done a little bit. Not
You have
really.
like a CD or a
I do have
tape
a CD.
or something, like an actual physical CD.
Where you basically have a note that you're trying to hit, and then you're saying the whole alphabet in like this strong tone, and then kind of a breathy tone, and you're training your voice to go higher. So it's voice sort of like training your masculine voice to go into higher registers. I feel like the voice that I'm talking in now is slightly higher than it used to be when I was guy mode or pre-egg or whatever.
Oh yeah, tell us about the egg.
Times.
Tell us about the egg thing. What's an egg mode? What is egg mode?
Egg mode.
I think multiple people in this chat would benefit from hearing what the heck an egg mode is.
Okay, just a sec.
Okay. I warned Cappy that we would need more water than she ever thought was necessary, because the constant talking requires way more water than you need.
Well, even with taking trainings at work, like I've taken professional trainings on talking in public, and they totally said like have a glass of water there.
So much water.
So much water.
Like I go through this much plus my water bottle every stream.
Yeah.
And I was like, you need your own. I'm not sharing. I need all of this.
It's true.
So much water. I've already gone through a third of mine.
I haven't done anything to raise my voice higher, really. Besides just a tiny little bit of training. Plus also I like sing to Sade and try to like get my voice raised up with singing along to songs. But so egg mode is something to refer, it refers to people that are on the cusp of coming out to themselves as trans. So whenever they do come out, and we call them baby trans, usually, we refer to the time before they just came out as egg mode. Like they haven't hatched yet. They haven't hatched out of their shell.
What age are people in egg mode?
Any age.
What if you're 55?
What
if you're 60? Can you be egg mode at 60?
Absolutely can. There's people that have come out at 90. There's people that have come out right before they died. Oh yeah.
People came to, do you know a specific story of someone coming out at 90?
Nothing specific, but I have seen stories of people coming out. Like there was a boxing trainer, like a famous boxing trainer, I think in England, that had promoted like all of these boxing matches.
Yeah.
And then at age 70, he decides, well, he being the previous gender, she decides to come out and be a trans woman at 70, and then tried to pursue surgery and was told like you're too old and you can't do surgery.
Sounds really
so I'm like, wow, that is a bummer. That is a bummer. So
it's really disappointing.
So I would say like the earlier the better. But also you come out when you come out.
Yeah. What about the impact of coming out on your employability or job? There's a big one.
Oh yeah. Well, it really depends upon what part of the world you're in. there's countries in which coming out is a real safety issue,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a possibility of losing your job because of it. And even in the United States, that's been a reality for a long time too, without protections put into place that employers couldn't fire you because you're trans.
Mm-hmm.
There's also, that's sort of the same thing as employers firing you because you're gay.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're expecting you to conform to a binary themselves, and
I'm just grabbing a jacket.
okay, there's people that expect you to conform to a binary within that employer, and you just, that's not who you are. And a famous example of this is a trans woman who used to work for IBM and was a guy working for IBM at the time, invented these advanced microchip designs that, like all modern computers, have used the concepts come up with that's supposed to come up with, and came out at IBM as female and was fired. Like, IBM fired this person. And just recently, just within like the last year or so, IBM has issued like a formal apology saying, "We're sorry we fired you because you're trans." And so, like, even whenever you come up with like really awesome work for an employer as large as IBM was, you can still be, there was a possibility of being fired from them. You got anything to add here?
I mean, people have heard me talk about this in my YouTube video that's like 18 minutes about me coming out. So
Like this is snappy.
I was cold, so I put on a jacket.
This is great.
But I put on a handsome jacket instead of a frumpy sweatshirt
This
jacket.
is awesome. I love it.
But it does make me harder to see against the background because there it is.
Yeah, I mean, I really like what you're wearing right now.
Thanks, honey.
Yeah.
We have Demi Boy and Demi Girl hearts in the Discord. Awesome. Yes, there's a conversation in the chat going on about how there's wishes for Demi Boy, Demi Girl hearts happening in the chat. Looking snazzy. Thank you. Coming in with Power Meowster.
Nice. I would say so.
Thanks, honey.
It's like a power suit. Look at that.
I wore most of this outfit to our wedding. I think I had a white shirt on and did I wear a bow tie? I think I did.
Yes.
I think I was in my bow tie, my suspenders.
You were.
A white shirt. But I wore this situation.
Yeah.
So yeah. I coming out at work didn't go well for me. I actually left my last job because people misgendered me too much. Like everyone. Every single person misgendered me. There was one person who got my pronouns right like half the time, and that person quit. And after they quit, work was real bad. Boo.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
yeah. I had the opposite experience at my employer. Again, it's a large hardware and software company, or at least hardware and software companies have been swallowed by each other. Yeah.
that is a thing that happens.
That is a thing that happens in mergers. So I was egg mode for a long time. I graduated college and got a computer science degree as a white male.
As a straight white male.
As a straight white male.
You had all the privilege.
I did. I had all the white privilege.
And able-bodied.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Able-bodied, straight white male with a wife and kids?
Not at that point.
Kids on the way.
That was pretty single. I mean, that as far as employers go for software engineers, like being a single,
they want the single
male.
people.
Oh yeah,
because then they lose themselves in work and work.
That's right.
80 plus hours a week.
Yep. So
it sounds exhausting.
Like most of my software engineering career, I was this straight white male person, and I reached a point where I felt like I was not a straight white male person anymore. I was a gay trans woman.
Woo!
So I coordinated with HR and my engineering leadership. And at the time, HR had a snazzy white paper that they had written up for previous employees that had come out.
Uh-huh.
That's like how to come out as trans at work.
Yeah.
Like basically it's this whole thing. It's
Wow.
like
We had
whole
no support like that
like
at my job.
procedural
It's a smaller business though.
PDF manual,
It's
like
like 10 people that worked there.
15-page manual of how to come out at work.
And your workplace is one of the big, like, thousands of people work there?
Oh yeah.
Hundreds of thousands? Tens of thousands?
Tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands, yes, versus 10. So would you, question that I just came up with, would you say that if you are gender nonconforming, non-binary, or trans, it may be better for you to work at a larger workplace that has an HR that knows how to deal with gender stuff because it's a huger population, they've had to address it more?
Yeah, I would say so. Essentially, if you're not aware of the Human Rights Campaign, HRC, that's a good resource to go to see a list of employers that have made it a priority to support trans and gay and non-binary folks. There is what's called a corporate equality index that they publish. And if you get a perfect 100 score on that corporate equality index, that is a good employer to work for because
That's
that means if you come out at work, they have a means to support you. They have employee resource groups that you can join and see all the other employees that have joined that as well. So my employer has a pride group where I join up with other LGBT folks. That's it's employer sanctioned group. Like I feel very supported actually. They pay for all of your surgeries. They pay for HRT. So all of the healthcare is there. Um, they could be doing more, of course. They could, but I think that's like as time goes on, they figure out what it does it mean to support someone who's trans and support their health needs because that's sort of an evolving thing. But yes, go to the HRC website, hrc.org. They have a corporate equality index. Yes.
This one that I posted in the chat?
Yep.
I also have posted the link to this in our LGBTQIA LGBTQ resources for allies section, which we have a couple. Let me do a Discord thing here. Let's see. Discord. How do I spell? So the Dungeon-Meowster Discord server is wide and varied. It is very much a LGBTQ friendly, neurodiverse friendly, intentionally so space. And we have some sections called important information for allies, and there's an anti-racism section and there's an LGBTQ section. We'll likely be adding more as time goes on, but those are both read only, and there's only, I think only admins have the ability to post to those right now, and part of that is because we need more moderators more deeply educated in these categories before we can start opening that up to more broad discussion. Just because, frankly, if we only have 2 mods who are white who are around all the time, I don't feel like we have enough people of color contribution to really moderate an anti-racism chat very well at all. So we have resources that are written by people of color, also folks who have time and capacity to moderate. That's a really good point, Mir. So like the anti-racism is resources made by people of color for white people or for everyone, that is intentionally to help us all educate ourselves about anti-racism. Currently the LGBTQ space is, there's not a lot of things I've posted yet because I've been busy, but this VOD will be there as well. Yes, so one thing an ally of LGBTQ folks can do is educate yourself. So like right now, hanging out in this chat and learning about the things we're talking about, that is one way to be an ally. I'm going to jump back to the pronouns thing for a moment here. If you hear someone get misgendered, stand up for them, say something, because honestly, for me, it's like an onslaught of I am constantly misgendered, and so if I have an ally who says, their pronouns are they them for me, then that's one less time I have to do it myself, and it is less expensive for me emotionally. Video Game Architect, can you please send me the book you recommended in Discord so I can catch that later? Because there's a lot of things happening right now. So thank you.
Very
Bacchus is
much
going to
for
work,
the
but leaving the biddies. Thank
bits.
you. So yeah, blah blah. Correct people's pronouns on behalf of people, because then it takes the labor off of their shoulders and it's way easier. Okay.
Yep.
Yes. What else should we talk about? Let's see. We talked about what do you mean by misgendered. We talked a bit about microaggressions. Okay, here's one question. How do sexual identities and gender identities shift? So I think I'm the one who wrote this question. Like, for me, thinking about what does it mean to be non-binary or trans and have a sexual identity? So, like, you started as straight, and then that shifted when your gender shifted.
Yeah.
And, like, I have had many sexual identities. I thought I was straight, turns out I wasn't. And then I was bi for like 1 month. For me, it was a stepping stone. But I just want to be clear here that being bisexual is not a stepping stone for everyone. Bisexuality is real, and there's a lot of bisexual erasure, just like there's a lot of non-binary erasure. And then people on either or multiple sides of the sexuality spectrum, straight and lesbian and gay and pan even, don't support or make space for bisexuals in their spaces. So that's a thing.
Yep. So one thing I wanted to say about this is that nature does not work in binaries.
Oh, that's a good point.
You look at the world outside of humans, to the animal kingdom and to like the insects and how gender and sexuality play out there. There's all sorts of things that you find. Like fish that can change their gender based on, water temperature.
What? That's so cool.
Or like there's a thing that's going on right now with turtles. Like if the sand that the turtle eggs are too hot, then the turtles end up being female. But so it's sort of a way that global warming is going to mess up turtle sexuality because if the sand's too hot, you're not going to get any males, and then you're not going to have males breeding females. So
cool.
I mean, that's just one example, and you see all these different things, all these different ways that gender and sexuality play out outside of humans, and you find that to box something into a binary, it's a human construct. It's just like it seems nice. It seems like, it seems obvious, but if you actually look at nature and how DNA and all of that stuff play out, there is no binaries anywhere to be found.
So Mirami writes, seaweeds go through gender cycles throughout their life cycles, and a lot of plants for that matter. And Aqua responds, I think I might be a plant then, lol. I love that. I love it so much. Okay. So my answer of this has more to do with social constructs. How do sexual identities shift as gender identities shift? So I have been a lesbian for like 10 years. I don't know. More than that. How old am I? 10, at least 10 years, maybe more, at least 10 years. And there's some pieces of lesbian culture that are really like sweet and valuable to me. So like the joke we made about you hauling at the beginning of our thing. I think that there are pieces of like the women loving women groups of folks that still feel really Yummy and true for me. The thing is, though, I don't identify as a woman anymore. And so I actually posted on Reddit a while back, which, you know, maybe posting about gender and sexuality on Reddit is not a great idea. But someone commented on whatever, I don't even remember the post, but someone's comment was, if you're transmasculine or if you're a trans man, you can't be a lesbian anymore or something. And so for me, I think it's more complicated than that. I think it's like, however you identify is how you identify. Like, and
Yeah.
to gatekeep and say, you have to be only a cis woman or a trans woman. So like trans exclusionary radical feminists, also known as TERFs, TERFS, would say only cis women can be lesbians. Oh yeah, let me back up. Cis meaning the gender you were assigned at birth is also the gender you identify with now, as opposed to trans, which is anything else.
Yeah, so the way I define cis is not trans. If
I like it.
Yeah, it really is just that simple. It's not like a derogatory thing to call someone a cis person. It's actually scientific. Like, well, are you trans? No. Well, then you're cis. It's, I mean, if there is a binary, it is that. It is like, if you're not cis, you're trans, and if you're not trans, you're cis. And which also touches upon a point like, I use trans as an umbrella term to say not cis. But also trans usually implies that there's a gender binary there, and there's a notion of, does non-binary fit within the trans umbrella? I would say yes, but also it needs to be separated out as its own thing because it gets erased so often.
Just like bisexual and bisexual and pansexual, pan and trans sound the same. In my brain, get lumped under lesbian and gay, right? Like diverse sexualities, but it's important to have specific spaces and places for people who are those identities.
Yeah.
Yes. It's all true.
It's true. Where were we?
We were talking about identity shifting and how they impact each other.
Okay.
Yeah, so for today, I still identify as a lesbian, even though I'm masculine of center and non-binary, and who knows what's happening there.
Yeah.
But I do think it would be wise for me to think about or explore the what is the word? Pansexuality. Not necessarily because I'm attracted to cis men, because I'm not. But because, like, it's more complicated now. It's more diverse now than it was. And until meeting you, Cappy, I had only dated cis women. And so that was like a whole new thing to explore and navigate. And we're not going to go too much into that today.
Yeah.
But so, realizing that I love who I love and what does that mean for my identity has been interesting. Bacchus says, posted it in the Discord. Second time I've thought of it in your streams. Have a great stream now, friend. Which Discord? I don't see it in Meowsters. Good questions. Good questions. Oh, yeah, I see it. I see it, Bacchus. It's in one of the opt-in spaces. Here. It's in the gender and sexuality opt-in. Okay. Next question. I think we've answered all of these. What is the difference between gender dysphoria and gender euphoria? Ooh. What are dysphoria and euphoria? Tell us more.
Okay, well, I'll start with gender euphoria first. Because it is the first thing I've ever felt. So, there's a funny story that goes with this. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, in a large house with four dudes, four men, cis men, that we were all software engineers together, and we were all living in this house, and we were all paying for it. And they just, they decided to go get other jobs somewhere else, so they all moved out. And I was the last occupant. I was the last occupant in the house. So
So you're in a town, and you're the last occupant in a house.
right, last occupant in the house. And
On the topic of gender euphoria, is this the part where you found something in a dryer?
it is.
Okay.
Okay. So it was expensive to pay for this house. So I wanted to go get an apartment of my own. So I found an apartment in another part of town that was closer to my work and was cheaper and wasn't a big house that I had to pay for. So I moved in there, and they had the option of renting a washer and dryer from the landlord that they would come and put in my place. So I had that done because I had no washer and dryer of my own. And they dropped it off, and then I opened, I went to go do some clothes, and I opened the dryer, and inside was someone else's stuff. What was in there was a crocheted blanket and a skirt. Just those two things. And I pulled the skirt out. I'm like, someone left their skirt behind. Interesting. And then I got the notion, I wonder what it would be like to put this on. I mean, I'm in my own house. I am the only occupant in here. And I shut all the windows and locked the door and made sure that no one was going to see me.
You're so cute. You're so cute, though.
And I put this skirt on, and was I didn't understand before I put it on. I didn't understand like why I wanted to do that, but I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put it on, and I felt the most amazing feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whoa, why do I feel so good about this?
Mm-hmm.
And it was sort of like, it felt kind of like there was like it was a complicated emotion that arose within me. I think it was more like 5 emotions arose within me at the same time. Like delight and joy, excitement, kind of this like guilt feeling, and like a need to like hide what I'm doing. Like I need to go hide and do this. And I would wear it around the house, and I would feel all of these emotions all at once, and it felt very confusing to me, but also good, but also like, why does this feel so weird? um I don't know what happened to the skirt, but I don't have it anymore. I think I probably gave it to a Goodwill. But
Isn't there a whole thing in the trans community of like getting clothes, purging them, getting them again? Can you tell us more about that?
yeah, there is a thing. I never really did that piece, but from what my understanding is that folks will want to wear women's clothing or men's clothing, depending upon which side you're coming from.
Or androgynous clothing.
Or androgynous clothing, or clothing in general. Clothing is clothing. Let's just say, like, clothes are clothes. They get put on a body, and it doesn't matter what body they are put on. They're clothes. They're your clothes. So from what I've understood, trans women that have before they come out as themselves will get clothes for themselves and will have stashes of them and would put them on in moments of privacy and kind of feel themselves living as who they are, but also like hide it away, and then sometimes they'll they'll have like a surge of guilt come over them, or someone is about to find out their stash or something, and then they'll dump them all, and then they'll go through cycles of this. They'll acquire clothes, put them on, stash them, dump them all, on and on and on until they actually come out, or maybe they don't. This never happened to me. I grew up in a very conservative household where I had no access to wear clothes like that, and um, would be so afraid of putting something like that on, um, that I wouldn't take the chance. So I just kind of crawled up into my own head and lived in there and tried to be a boy on the outside as much as I could, but lived within my own in my own head. It was the safest place for me.
Yeah.
So as far as like the like go back to gender euphoria, putting on the skirt, it definitely felt euphoric. Now gender dysphoria.
Wait, hold on. I want to answer gender euphoria before we
Okay,
move on.
you go on to gender euphoria.
So, on the topic of gender euphoria, for me, I didn't have the magical put on a skirt and everything is wondrous experience. Like, we went to a major city and I got a binder and tried it on. And I was kind of like, oh, well, whatever. That's fine, I guess. I don't know. But then I noticed when I took it off, um, uh, I did not feel great about how like floppy and loose my chest had gotten. And so it was more the absence of the clothes that I found noticeable. Now I can tell you that growing up, imagining my future, I never saw myself in a wedding dress at my wedding. Like that, like wearing a dress at the wedding was never a thing in my brain. It just I also could never imagine my spouse for some reason. Like, assigned female at birth, it's like, oh, I'm supposed to marry a dude, a man, I don't know. But I could never see that person. I also could never imagine, I guess I'm getting into that what was it like growing up question as well. I also could never imagine like bearing children, like being pregnant and having children, but I could imagine having kids and youth in the house and loving caring for them, which is why like when I met you and you had teenagers, I was like, this is perfect. I get to skip the pregnant part, the diapers part, the like training them how to feed themselves part, and I just get to have the fun like parenting teenager bit.
Mm-hmm.
Hooray! Worked out well for me.
Yeah.
So I get to have kids that I love and, skip some of those other pieces. Flare the Blair, I see you saying, yes, same.
I consider myself very lucky as a trans woman
Uh-huh.
to have had children.
Yeah. Because once you start
Like
HRT,
right. Once you start once
no
once
more
I
making babies yourself.
once I started HRT, there's like this whole like informed consent, they call it. They give you a whole sheet of like, if you take estrogen, these things happen to your body. And one of them is you go sterile.
Yeah. Okay, so HRT is hormone replacement therapy.
Yes.
It's different. You would take different things depending on if you're assigned male at birth or assigned female at birth.
Yes.
So, what are the different types of medicines that a trans woman, so someone assigned male at birth who is going towards the more feminine side of things, what sort of medicines would you take?
Okay, so there's three general ones that I can think of. The most obvious is estrogen. It comes in many different forms. There's gels injected under the tongue, just actual pills that you swallow, patches, like pellets that go under the skin. There's a lot of different ways to,
Skin pellets.
yeah,
I've
there's
never heard of skin pellets.
a lot of different ways to consume that particular hormone. Um,
But it's not just estrogen.
not just estrogen. No.
So what effect does the estrogen have on your body?
So I would say it's the most important to address any sort of uh like it feminizes your body. Like it'll change your skin and move your fat around, and it doesn't change your voice. I mean, you're stuck with a low voice, or
But when
not.
trans men take T, their voices get deeper.
Yes.
So that's a difference between
Yes.
like male and female. Well, lots of quotes here. HRT.
And what is T?
Testosterone. I know almost nothing about it.
Right.
I'm not that far in my journey. There may actually be trans masculine and trans men in the chat who could tell us more than I could tell us.
Yeah.
So estrogen.
Yep.
Another one is spironolactone.
It's all right. Spironolactone. It's an anti-androgen. There's other anti-androgens out there, but I was using spironolactone. Video game architect says, how can you freeze your genetic material before starting hormones? Yes, you can. There's people that have banked their sperm or banked their eggs or whatever. And that is like something that folks can do. Like if you're given informed consent, like you're going to go sterile, and they're giving you you're given the option. Do you want to do something about having children in the future? If you do, then you can't take stuff right now. Go get your stuff banked, and then come back and start start your hormone replacement. So going back to spironolactone, it is an anti-androgen. It is something that latches onto testosterone in the bloodstream and removes it. So effectively, it pulls the testosterone out. And it was the most effective for me to not experience the dysphoria in my mind.
Does it also make you crave pickles? What's up with pickles?
It's considered a diuretic. It makes you urinate a lot, and so it also pulls a lot of salt out to do that.
It pulls salt out.
So trans women end up usually craving pickles because it adds the salt back in, and there's a whole pickle thing. I do like pickles.
It's sort of a trope or
It is a trope.
thing in trans. Is it all trans community or just trans women community? Do you know? I don't actually know.
I think it's the trans women community because of Spiro.
Yeah.
Yeah. The third one is progesterone. It's one that hormone doctors will just like let's say you like hear some hearsay. There's usually a lot of hearsay around what progesterone can do for you. A lot of it is like around breast growth. A lot of it is like evening yourself out with your emotions.
Progesterone is the third one.
Progesterone, yeah. And there's not a lot of data on progesterone. I think it affects different people differently. HRT docs will usually just say, "Oh yeah, you can do progesterone. I don't know how you want to do it, but here go. Here's some progesterone." And
how the doctors are a little bit rednecky in your mind.
They are kind of. They're like gender cowboys.
Hello, Maestra Issa. Welcome in. Welcome to our conversation about HRT.
And then trans women will there's like a thing around progesterone that they cycle. They'll cycle progesterone like 10 days. 10 days a month they'll take it to sort of mimic the ups and downs of hormones that biological
cause menstrual cycles.
Biological estrogen folks would go through. Yeah, menstrual cycles. I never did that. I just kind of took it every day. I found that it really dampened down my libido a lot, actually. And it evened out emotional states, which now that I'm off of progesterone right now, I actually kind of like the emotional states going haywire a little bit. It just feels more natural to me. So your mileage may vary with progesterone.
Okay, this brings me to like there's like two different threads that I'm wanting to pick up, so we'll do one and then the other. One of the questions is what is gender dysphoria, which was an earlier question, but the one that feels more relevant to this topic right now is what is gender confirmation surgery and what different ones are there?
Mm.
How do you feel about I don't know how you feel about talking about surgeries.
I feel okay about talking about surgeries. I'm not going to talk about my personal experience with them because I don't have any personal experience with them
Mm-hmm.
at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like we need to take a break, however.
Okay.
I think that's a big topic to broach before I take a break.
Okay. So you want to take like a 5-minute bio break and come back?
Yes.
Okay. Dear everyone in the chat, please keep hanging out. We will be right back after we have a bio break. There will be VODs available, it's true. Yes, so I'm going to play some music, get our BRB screen up. I don't even know where the BRB anything is. You're going to see D&D BRB. There you go. See you everyone very soon. Welcome back. Thanks for dropping by. To the folks that are dropping by. Stretch, hydrate, get a snack if you need one. You're sticking around and learning. Yay. Look at you
I
posting in the chat.
appreciate all the folks that are hanging out right now. And oh, my voice is starting to crack. Look at that. You did it. Everyone, you did it.
If anyone had questions they'd like to ask, do feel free. Message them to Mir. If you're worried that your wording is weird. I'm going to be eating food on stream because I have a headache that won't go away, and I wonder if it's food related. I haven't eaten yet today. I was too excited.
That looks delicious.
I know. But surgeries. Tell us about surgeries.
Oh, my voice is cracking.
Yay, food. I mean, if you want to.
Let's talk about gender dysphoria before that.
Okay.
I think it's an important piece. So right out of the gate, I want to say that you can be trans without experiencing gender dysphoria.
That's important to know.
Because it's a bunch of gatekeeping to say that you have to experience gender dysphoria to be trans. I think that's not true. It's just one of those things that some folks experience and some folks do not. I personally do experience it. It feels to me.
People like your outfit, by the way.
My outfit?
Yeah.
My shirt?
Jane and Mir are enjoying your necklace and how your necklace goes with your shirt.
Oh, thank you.
That's one great thing you can do for genderful beings is compliment how they look and use the descriptive words that fit the gender that they are. So if someone tells me I'm pretty, I'm like, nah. And someone tells me I'm handsome, I feel really good about it.
Yeah. It's true.
Like I tell you you're pretty all the time.
You do.
Because you are. But also, if I told you you were handsome, it wouldn't feel as good.
No. That's what my grandma used to say. You're so handsome. And I'm like, I used to be, but not anymore. Thanks, Grandma. Hello. Okay. Gender dysphoria. So, I personally experience that my brain has a map of my body. It's expecting to find parts in certain places, and it doesn't find them in those places. It also is seeing parts that don't map to anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's constantly asking me the question, why are these parts on you? And it's not like a once a day thing, it's more like a once a second thing. Like, why are these parts on you? Why are these parts on you? It just kind of like,
it's like having a hangnail you can't remove.
Yeah.
Just constantly bothering you.
It's like an itch you cannot scratch. It's people have tried to describe gender dysphoria in so many ways that it gets poetic. Like, how do you describe it? I mean, the best way the best way I've found to describe it is phantom limb syndrome.
Mm.
Like people that go, people that experience having a limb removed from them in either violent or non,
Thank you, Mariah.
will experience in their head that they still have the limb on their body,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't. It's because they have a brain map that says you are supposed to have an arm right here. And so your brain's like, where's your arm? It's sort of the same thing.
Did you come up with the mapping thing, or did you read that somewhere? Because I've heard you reference that a lot, and I wonder where that phrase comes from.
I have read it somewhere.
Okay.
It is a thing that exists in the brain. There is a structure that I don't know the name of the structure. That is a reference of your own body that your brain's expecting to see parts where they're not parts. That's how I experienced gender dysphoria anyway. There's another component to it is like I've recently had to switch my hormones around because of surgeries in my future.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a time a couple weeks ago where my estrogen patches failed on me because of something I did to them. Like I rubbed some sort of body oil on myself, and they seeped under my estrogen patches that are stuck on me, and they interfered with the drug delivery on those patches. And so my brain had no estrogen, and it was just rolling back onto the present testosterone in my system, and I experienced some pretty bad stuff, like some really dark, some like a darkness, like a what I described as a house guest that was uninvited into my brain, and like it was disturbing and hard to live with. It basically meant that I had to distract myself pretty constantly in order to not have this dwelling thought in my head.
So in regular times when you're not getting ready for a surgery,
Yes,
how often do you take HRT?
every day,
Twice a day,
twice
right?
a day. Yep.
So what happens when you miss a dose?
My brain goes fuzzy.
Can you tell us more about that experience, what that is like?
Uh, I get lightheaded and I forget words and I basically cannot really function. I become kind of a pile. Just
Mm-hmm.
and people have to help me out. And I think my kids actually have experienced like I missed my estrogen dose for the day, like accidentally. And they saw me go from a functional adult to one that they had to actually help me, like help me through the day to get me back home. And then I took my meds and then everything is fine.
Well, and sort of an ongoing agreement that you and I have is I can ask you if you've taken your meds for the day and you will never be offended.
It's true.
Because it's part of like how we care for each other is like making sure we both had our meds.
Yes.
Yeah. So there are times when I'll notice the capybara is you get like this glazed over look, sort of a stare, like a whatever the number is.
1,000-yard stare or something like that. Yeah.
1,000-yard stare. And you look like almost like shut down or overwhelmed. Like the sensory information is too much. And so you just like
Yeah.
and I'll send you to bed. I'll be like, you need to go take your meds and lay down.
Yeah. Like I see it as that I start what's that word? See, I can't come up with words anymore.
That's okay. You took your meds today? I know your meds are currently a patch that you put on your body,
I
so
did
you did take your meds.
I did take my vitamin D and vitamin C today.
Nice.
So those are my meds that I'm taking right now. It's just
Mhm.
vitamins.
Good.
So yeah, like I space out. I dissociate. That was the word I was looking for. I
There we go.
dissociate and kind of crawl back inside my own head. So that's gender dysphoria. I think there's a lot of, other trans people will experience their gender dysphoria in other ways. Like there's also the facial hair thing. Like I haven't gotten all my electrolysis done yet on my face, so I have to shave every other day.
So electrolysis is a procedure that removes hair?
Electrolysis is a procedure that moves hair.
And there's electrolysis and laser, right? Those are
Right.
two different things. Why are there two?
Laser hair removal, you can get a lot of a bulk of your hair removed in less time
Mm-hmm.
and in the long run less expense.
Laser is less expensive.
In the long run it is, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the upfront cost of it is, kind of $1,000 to $2,000, but if you're focusing on your face and neck. But if you were to do electrolysis instead of laser, it would end up being a lot more money, like to do it all.
So taking estrogen doesn't stop hair growth on your face.
Does not.
Or any of the HRTs. Whereas with trans men, taking testosterone creates hair growth.
Yes.
But then if you stop taking T, do you still have the hair growth? Because of the way hair follicles work?
I don't know the answer to that
Me
question.
neither. I think it is, though.
I think once you've got the hair there, it stays there.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened to me. I was on testosterone, like naturally.
Yep.
Had a bunch of hair. Then I removed my testosterone. I still have the hair. It's still growing.
Yep.
So laser hair removal works best whenever you have a contrast between your hair color and your skin color. And if there's enough contrast there, then the laser can find the hair underneath your skin and zap it. It does not work on hair that is too light and does not have enough contrast.
If you're white.
Any skin tone.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
There just needs to be a contrast between your hair color and your skin color, no matter what your skin tone is.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I've got like a lot of white and sort of like lighter color hair coming out of my face nowadays. I had laser hair removal on my face and has removed a lot of the darker stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the lighter stuff still remains because laser cannot target it.
I call it your queer glitter.
It's queer glitter. And it's actually quite annoying to have queer glitter on my face. It's like, oh God, I'm so just, it feels bad.
I just tried to reframe it for you.
Oh, yes.
But also, I support you having no hair on your face instead.
Yeah. A frequent thing that I hear from folks is, oh, well, everyone has hair. Why do you feel compelled to remove yours? Like, as far as like body hair goes. And I'm just thinking like, people have different body hair needs.
Yeah.
You gotta respect everyone's body hair needs. Like, you can't just go off of your own self. You have to reference, other people have their own preferences with that. So take care of yourselves the way you need to. And really, I had to take care of myself around age 18 plus by compulsively removing my body hair. That was like one of the signs, like looking back on my life, like, oh yeah,
Is that part of how you knew you were trans later?
It was one of the data points that I used to determine that I was trans later. Yeah. It's like all these different behaviors that I went back in time, like, oh yeah, I did that. Oh yeah, I did that and that and that and that, and now I'm trans. Of course. Of course I am.
So Flair says, pretty sure hair will still grow to the degree it already has if you get on T and get off of it, I assume. Nikki says, I get chin hairs and I hate it. Jane says, I have chin hairs and I leave them. Differences. Yeah, I get these little hairs that grow out of my scar on my chin and I compulsively pluck them. There's like 2 and 2 to 6 and they really bother me. And so I've been thinking about, well, if these bother me, if I had facial hair, would that bother me or would it not? Because maybe it would be a different texture having the whole thing. I don't know. I'm still navigating that.
Yeah.
It's a big question mark in my head.
Yep.
Um.
So gender confirmation surgery.
Oh yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah. Which is, there's a bunch of different names this goes by. I use gender confirmation surgery because it's focusing on gender and it's focusing on confirmation. Like it's confirming the gender that I am. There's different names it goes by, but I'm not gonna touch on them. There's also derogatory ways to reference this surgery, and you know when you see it. So I'm just gonna call it GCS, or gender confirmation surgery. There are different ones. It depends upon. There's also depends upon how old you are. Like there's young people that come out as trans, and if they've got supportive parents, they'll put them on hormone blockers. But the issue with hormone blockers is that you don't get enough genitalia growth to have enough material to be able to have surgery that gets any sort of depth that you need. So there's different techniques that surgeons have come up with to counteract this lack of material. And so there's different techniques out there. So the one's called a peritoneal pull through. It's not too common. It's more common for folks that don't have enough material to go with. There's and I'm only talking about the male to female surgery here. This is just male to female surgery. Gender GCS. There's GCS for trans men that I don't know much about besides top surgery.
Yeah, there's a top surgery and at least one bottom surgery. There may be multiple, but I know a little bit more about top surgery. So I have already had a breast reduction surgery because of back pain. So like I have all these scars and they had to do like a keyhole thing. Trigger warning for surgery stuff. Probably should have said that 5 minutes ago. But they basically had to cut this way and like move my nipples to make them centered in the new breast tissue. And so I've been thinking about, what does it mean or look like to have another surgery on top of the one I already had on my chest to make it completely flat? And do we get rid of the nipples altogether or do we keep them? And today at least, I'm leaning towards get rid of the nipples altogether, which I have weird feelings about, but I mean, there's so much scarring for me that's happening. And I don't know if my surgeon didn't warn me enough about the scarring or if I did a bad job in recovery or both or something else. But my hope is that if I do have the surgery again, we can remove the really scarred tissue and make it a simpler healing process by not including the nipples, because saving nipples really complicates things because you have to sew it back on, and it's a whole thing. It was a lot of bruising. It was awful. I don't want to go through all that pain in my chest again, but I may have to because more and more each day I feel dysphoric about my chest. So anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
So as far as gender confirmation surgery for trans female folks, there's 3 techniques that I know off the top of my head. There's like the penile inversion, which is the most popular kind. It's the oldest kind, I think. Where they take like the skin of the penis and they turn it inside out and make the vaginal canal with it and like kind of rearrange the pieces. So all the pieces that are there are still working and attached and like.
So your removable rod becomes a bag of holding?
Yes.
Hey.
Yeah, they reroute like the urethra and they reroute like where the clitoris is and kind of rearrange pieces and parts. And I like to say like it's like Taco Bell, where you start off with a burrito and end up with a taco. It's all the same ingredients. So
people liked my joke.
there's like peritoneal pull through. So peritoneal tissue is a tissue that exists on the inside of one's body cavity, and it's everywhere in the body. And you can use this tissue to form structures with it. And so there's it's used in techniques where you don't have enough material. They'll supplement it with this tissue or with skin other skin grafts off other parts of your body. They'll take some skin off
Mm-hmm.
and then use that, and then you'll have to have like a healing process for that. There's also using part of your colon as the structure, as the
Is there
vaginal
a
structure.
benefit to that you don't get in other ways?
The benefit to doing it that way is that it's self-lubricating,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the other techniques may not be.
Right.
So there's always this trade-off. There's a trade-off between being self-lubricating and not, and whether that's important
Otherwise,
to
you're
you.
just going to be using external lubricant for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm rubbing my face because I'm working on the headache I have, in case anyone's wondering what's happening over here.
no. Yeah.
Yeah.
So some have advantages over others. If one is interested in having this surgery done, it's worth going and researching each different kind, and also
Drink water.
the different surgeons that exist. In the United States, there's not very many. Maybe probably 20 people.
Scar just recommended I get an ice pack. That's a really good idea. So Cataqueer asks, self-lubricating, how so? Can you clarify on that? Do you know more about that? Or shall I give you another question and run to get an ice pack?
Let's see, what was the actual question
The
here?
question is how is using the colon tissue self-lubricating?
Oh, okay. Well, you can go get an ice pack and I'll talk about this. Some tissues secrete and some tissues do not. So if it is a penile inversion, there's part of the urethra that is left over that they'll fold back inside as sort of a secreting tissue. There's different kinds of tissue. So the inside of your urethra is one of those kinds of tissue that is a secretory or a secreting tissue, and they'll sew that in as part of the structure, and then a little bit of lubricant can come from that. Whereas, using a piece of the colon, that's like all secret, that tissue does secrete more and adds moisture within. There's, with that sort of surgery using the piece of the colon, it has to go through this transformation. Takes about 6 months where it smells bad, but it clears up. Like, it goes through a transformation of like where it is in the body. Like, it used to be dissolving food, but now it's acting as your vagina. So the bacteria that live within those places have to switch over, and because of that switch over, there's going to be like a transformation that happens. So we got the Neferkiti.
You did.
Uh,
I thought people might appreciate a cat while talking about surgeries.
yeah,
Do you want to hold her though so I can ice my neck?
sure.
Woo!
Squeal.
Squeal. She loves coming down and just like letting you hold her while you're working.
So this is why they call me TransCapybara, because animals like to lay on me.
Oh, I missed things. Let me read the chat. So there's other surgeries too. Can you tell us about voice surgery, facial feminization, and breast augmentation?
Sure. Breast augmentation, it's sort of a special kind of breast augmentation because it is going into an AMAB's chest. So a person like myself has a male sort of this bigger frame, bigger rib cage, and so breast augmentation looks a little different. I don't see myself ever doing this for myself. There's other,
Breast augmentation. You mean?
yeah, breast
Yeah.
augmentation. There's other trans folks that feel like that's a really important piece that they need to have done, so they do. And that's
I've met trans women that have had breast augmentation.
yeah. It's sort of the way that transition goes is you do what you need to do to feel like yourself, no matter what that is. And you usually do one thing and you ask yourself, do I need to do more? And if you do, then you do. And if you don't, then you stop. And everyone has their own transition. And so, um, you know, gender confirmation surgery is one of those things that I'm doing for myself. What I do after that, I don't know. So yeah, bottom surgery. That is kind of the shorthand way of saying it.
Also, just as a side note, unless you're the lover of a trans person, it's rude to ask their gender confirmation surgery status.
Yes.
But we're talking about it openly because we want other trans, non-binary, etc. folks to hear from essentially your trans elders, so that you can, hear from us what all that stuff is like and about. It's important to have visibility, but we're doing it on purpose in this like container of time, right? Where you're not just randomly asking us on the street. It's like we made this time on purpose to talk about it.
Yeah. I do consider myself a trans elder. I have helped other people come out, and helped other people like find resources. So it's sort of paying it back, right? Because whenever I came out, I had to come out. I came out to other trans people
I'll hold the cat. Yeah,
first.
nice, my neck.
Like they were the safest people to come out to was someone that I knew to be trans, and I'm like, I think I'm trans, and they were like, you probably are.
So tell us more about that whole conversation that you had. You were at lunch with someone and you were asking them things, and didn't they say something?
Well, I suspected that I was, and I pointed all these things out. Like, this is why I suspect that I am. And then they said, then you probably are, because cis people do not ask these questions. Cis people don't get it in their mind that their gender identity is different from themselves. Like it's all aligned. And so the question never raises like, of course I'm female, of course. Like, but so that was what they said to me. Like, if you think you're trans, you probably are. And that was just like kind of terrified and excited at the same time when they said that. I'm like, oh my God, what's this going to mean for my life? Right? I'm married and have children. And what does this mean? And how do I like move forward with this? And there's a lot of fear there. It's a very common thing to be, to go through, is sort of this grief process
Yeah, never.
of like, oh, my identity is dying. The identity that I've held out, like this is who I am, kind of a construct shell, and it's starting to crack.
That's yeah.
Yep.
Tell us more about trans grief.
Trans grief. Oh my God, there's so much of it. I think it's important. Well, it is important. Okay, so the next thing, I know I'm talking in fragments here. I've got the important things to say.
They're all good things.
The basis of health care around trans folks is this thing called the WPATH Standards of Care document. It is what any sort of health professional will refer to whenever you're trying to go get a surgery, let's say.
Is this it?
Yes, that is it. So it's not just as simple as you wake up one day, oh, I'm trans, I want a vagina, I want it tomorrow. That doesn't happen.
It's more
There's a lot
complicated
of
than
different things that you need to do first.
Yep.
And they're important things because you do have to be in the right mindset for this. And you have to I don't want to act as a gatekeeper, but also you have to be in the right mindset too. And sometimes,
Not just have a really manic day.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
you have to prove to other people that you're actually wanting to have done what you want done. And to change your genitals around is something that should not be taken lightly. And so this document it's a guideline to help you and to help doctors navigate coming out and taking hormones, coming out as yourself, as like living within the gender that you want to be in. Like there was a point in time where I had to switch from wearing male clothes to wearing female clothes. There was a point in time where I had to switch my name over to another name and to say, this is my name now, and this is my pronouns, and you'll refer to me as this person.
Yeah, that brings up a question for
It's
me.
there's a whole thing.
What is a dead name?
A dead name is your previous name.
The name
It
you
is
were given by your parents?
it's the name that's usually on your birth certificate or the name given by your parents. And it may not be a name that you identify with anymore. It may feel like you may feel like you need to choose a new name for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so you go through a process of choosing a name for yourself that feels good.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you present that new name to the world with your pronouns, whatever pronouns you choose for yourself, your old name and your old pronouns are never used again.
So, clarifying question. So, what if I already know the answer, but I'm asking for everyone else. What if I'm telling a story, if I'm your parent and I'm telling a story about you when you were a kid? What name and pronouns do I use for you when I'm talking about back then?
You use the current name in your current pronouns.
So I say TransCapybara and she, her when I'm talking about 3-year-old you.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reason is I've always been trans.
Yep.
From birth. It's retroactive. It's not like I switched from one to the other. It is that I've always been female. Right from the beginning, I've always been female.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense to retroactively apply a new name to your past self.
My friend Nikki is asking if I'm okay. I have a headache, so I'm icing my neck to try and help the headache.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is important though, so I'm trying to hang in there. Good stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
And I feel like all my cool, awesome, like Twitch and tabletop role playing game and Twitter friends have all been wanting to hear all this stuff from us, so it's nice to have it all piled together in one thing.
I think it's great. Yeah, I love educating.
Yay.
I mean, I don't expect this behavior from every trans person that you meet.
Word. Yes. That's
Please
correct.
do not.
This is a service that is being provided.
I just happen to like educating people.
Mm-hmm. But not 24/7 all the time necessarily.
Not obligate your trans, any random trans friend that you may have.
Yeah.
To saying all of it, to educating yourself. I think please take it upon yourselves to go find good educational material out there, and it may not be the internet.
Uh-huh.
The HRC, like the website I pointed out earlier,
right.
hrc.org, good place to start. There's a lot of great resources there.
Yep. And folks, we are all the links we're posting in the chat. I'm also posting in the LGBTQ resources. Can you do the command !Discord, Mir? So we are putting the resources on the Discord so that people can go through and read all that stuff at your leisure. Yeah.
So dead name, come back to it. It's that old name. You never reference it again. You basically take their old name and you put it out of your mind, like you forget it. Um, and if you hear that name being used to refer to that person, you correct. Be the ally, correct the name, like they go by this now. That name is not being used. Um, there's there's a common thing that trans people experience that their family members have a hard time with people that come out and will continue to refer to them with their dead name even though they know the new one. And that is a thing that people have to um, navigate. There's a lot of, that touches on the trans grief piece. They're like, talk about trans grief, and I'm like, oh, there's so much of it. Not only are you grieving yourself, losing your own identity and having to rebuild it from scratch, but there's also navigating other people's grief of losing the that construct of who you were and having to reform a construct of who you are now. And you get to see people go through all stages of it, and some people you'll see stuck in grief and never moving out.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing you can do about it.
You're talking about trans people or their relatives? Both.
The relatives.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and it gets that much more complicated when you add in, like, what's the word? When you're old and you forget things.
Yeah. Just sort of like,
Alzheimer's.
do I really care to have my 80-something-year-old grandparent follow my name and pronouns, or
Dementia. Thanks, Nikki.
do I just like let it go?
Yeah.
And until
for me, there's the question of how important is it?
Yeah.
So if my grandparent has dementia and they can't get their stuff figured out, like, part of it for me is like, out of love and respect for someone who's going through the process of dying a slow death, like, I'm not going to take it up with them. But if you're an employer or you're a coworker or you're a friend or you're a family member who does not have dementia, who's in my daily life or regular life, like, we're gonna talk about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, I've got one parent that absolutely accepts me and says my correct name and pronouns and treats me with respect.
Who also sends you cards in the mail.
Sends me cards in the mail.
And called you this morning and woke us up too early.
Yes, I need to call them back.
I think both of our mothers called today. It's great.
Yeah.
Shout out to the moms.
Shout out to my mom is the person that supports me. My other parent is having a hard time and does not refer to my name and pronouns correctly. And so I have a different relationship with that person. And it's like, that's, it could flip flop either way. It could be like the mom has the hard time and the dad doesn't, or mom and mom or dad and dad, who knows? Any mix and match parents, if you even have parents.
Yeah. I think we should skip to this question down here. Do you have any thoughts or advice for parents who are navigating children who are questioning?
Yes. First of all, for any parents who are navigating this, made the snap decision to just outright reject it, awesome job. Great job. You are doing the right thing. Please ask questions of other parents who may be going through the same thing. Find resources local to your area that that you can use as a sounding board. Talk to therapists. Find a good therapist for you and your children both, because there's a lot of grief that occurs here. There's some expectations that you're going to have to adjust for yourself.
I think there's also a piece that's like, if your child tells you they are genderful or they think they might be, or you start seeing some of the behaviors that, maybe we'll get into it in a minute here, like what our childhoods were like and how it might have, like what the early signs of trans and non-binary might have been seen from a parent's perspective. But so I have a sibling who came out, assigned female at birth, AFAB sibling who came out as a trans man for a while, and then later decided that maybe they were more like non-binary, but going back to using she/her pronouns because basically society is too hard to navigate with gender stuff still, and it's too much to deal with. And so the sibling went through a whole season in their life when she was using he/him pronouns. And so for me, I think that it's important for parents to relentlessly support your child wherever they're at in their gender journey, even if it keeps changing, which can be hard.
Yeah.
But it's really, really important to support them as they're exploring those pieces, because if you don't, they're going to keep doing it. They're just not going to tell you about it.
Yep.
Like my sibling acquired a binder on the down low, was wearing it in ways that were not healthy and responsible. Like, you should only wear a binder for no more than 8 hours a day, and it's better to take breaks because it can have an impact on your rib cage and your ability to breathe and your lung capacity. So going to your PE class wearing a binder is a really bad idea. But also the things that especially like trans masculine youth will do, like putting an ace bandage on their chest or using other stuff, it can be destructive, especially if your body is still growing. I think the other piece to consider is the difference between the medicine you can give someone who blocks hormones versus the medicine you give them that actively creates a puberty growth experience. So if there's a young person who's like, I don't know about this or that, if you get them on hormone blockers before they hit puberty, you basically, you are delaying puberty, which has its own effects, but you're also preventing them from having some of the irreversible changes that going through puberty will have. So making people wait until they're 18 to start taking HRT is actually really destructive to trans youth.
Yep.
Like, your bone structure would be different perhaps if you had taken hormone blockers as a youth.
Absolutely.
And there are bits about the way that you are that are irreversible, or that are reversible with a lot of expense and time and pain and suffering, frankly.
Yeah.
That if you had been able to take hormone blockers would have gone differently for you.
Yes.
And if you take hormone blockers, and if my sibling had taken hormone blockers, reached 18, realized that she wanted to be female, you just go off the hormone blockers and you have a delayed adolescence. What is the word?
Yeah.
When your body goes through puberty, that's the word.
Yeah.
You have a delayed puberty, but it doesn't mean you still go through puberty. It's just you start at 18 instead of 13. So anyway, I feel like there's more words to say, but
yeah,
I'm not braining very well. I'm going to read this question that Flare the Blair wrote while you say more words.
As far as supporting your youth, it's important to be an ally for them. There's a lot of grief that goes for people that don't get accepted by their families, and especially for folks that have no other escape and have no other means to form a social network around coming out. So it touches into the suicide piece, right? Trigger warning for suicide, but there's a high percentage of people that attempt suicide as trans folks because they don't have the support. And so please be a supportive parent. This is a thing that happens. This isn't this isn't made up. This is like a human condition. Being trans is a human condition that does happen. And it's rooted in biology. So, and every study that has come out lately underscores the fact that it's rooted in biology. So, be a realist. support your youth.
Mm-hmm.
They may be gay, they may be trans, they may be a combination of both. Support them. There's no way around it.
And they're allowed to change their minds, and that doesn't mean that whatever their previous identity was wrong or inaccurate. Because just like me, I was bisexual for like a hot minute and then like went to lesbian. And having people support and affirm my bisexuality was also important.
Yep.
Okay, I want to answer Fleur the Blair's question before we get running too fast other
Sure.
directions.
Sure.
So Fleur the Blair asks, how can I do kind of what you're doing, talking about LGBT stuff on stream as a part of just talking or as its own thing, especially as I've started transitioning since September more officially, been on T for a bit, just wondering how to be casual about things and be myself with friends from Twitch. So great question. Thank you for coming and asking it, Flair. I think I can tell you what I do. So for me, I'm non-binary all day, every day, or every gay, if you will. All day, every gay. So I can talk about trans and non-binary both in very explicit, like, I'm going to have an event. And so part of this is like I told everyone for like a week or weeks beforehand, this thing is going to be happening, please come. And I have the benefit of my very trans wife coming and joining me for this. So it's like, you know, everyone hears me reference TransCapybara all the time, and you actually get to see her face and talk to her for a while, which is like, ooh. Because you have like a full-time, beyond full-time,
Yeah.
real job.
I think the people see me whenever I hand plates of food to you.
Plates of food.
Yeah, like here's your coffee and your plate of food.
Or one of the kids will be in chat, he'll be like, "Hello, child," and walk off. So there's like,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I cook. I like making food, and then I'll bring up.
And you make really good food.
I'll make up food that works for the time, and that is usually how you see me. And sometimes I'll be on stream.
Yeah. But so the question is, how do we talk about gender in streaming? So because I'm non-binary all day every day, it comes up like I'll just be talking and someone will ask a gender question when I'm doing a video game stream. We'll just talk about that for a while. Mm-hmm. My coming out video on YouTube is actually my buddy, who might still be lurking, not sure. My buddy Rissa came in and was like, "Hi, I found your tweet on Twitter. What are you about? What's the deal? Also, here's all these questions." And so we just like sat and talked. And it was actually pretty late at night. And I pushed and I played games until, I don't know, 2 or 3 in the morning because I was having such a good conversation with Rissa. And so like that whole video on YouTube, that's my coming out video, is like a chopped down version of like a 3-hour conversation I had with Rissa about gender. So that's one way. Another way is, so I run tabletop role-playing games. And so I write trans and non-binary characters into my games. I actually, and here we have the pronoun bot. So that's another thing you can do, Flair, is integrate gender-related things into your bot things that post in chat. So this one says, sound off, what are your pronouns? Chat, Dungeon Meowsters, or they and them? What are yours?
Mine are she and her.
There we go. Mirrors is she and her.
Yeah.
So yes, so I write trans and non-binary characters into the stories I tell. And that's because I want me and people I love reflected in the stories that I tell. I have the benefit of being in those categories, so it's easier for me. I didn't have to do nearly as much research, right? Because I'm living it, right? I have lived experience. And so, but I think in general, diversity in tabletop gaming is like a whole other category. Ooh, cat queer with the fair pronouns, love it. Side note, we do have in our Discord, you can claim pronoun roles, and there's more pronouns than just he, her, he, her. What am I saying? He, him, she, her, they, them. And at least one person in the world has discovered a pronoun that they are now using for themselves because they saw all the different options and realized that existed. Did you know that? Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Very cool. So anyways, pronouns are fun. Snag one today. It's like an ad for pronouns. Also, everyone has pronouns, not just trans people. By the way, just by the by. Sometimes people are like, I don't have a pronoun. It's like, you probably do. You're probably cis and you totally have pronouns. Just saying.
Yeah, sometimes people in meetings, this comes up in meetings and work meetings, like go around the table and say pronouns, and those that are used to it will say their pronouns. Those that aren't will be like, I think it's he, him, and
Or like, I'm a man. And it's like, that's not what I asked.
and yeah, I'm a man, and sometimes I'll kind of joke, I'll jokingly like, if I were to say like she, her to refer to you, would that make you feel bad? And they're like, yeah, because I'm a he. I'm like, well, that's your pronoun.
Because I'm a man.
Like, okay.
Then there it is.
There it is, right? I pointed out.
Okay, but I have a soapbox about this.
Okay.
Dear everyone, normalize using your pronouns in your introductions, even if you're cis. Because if you're cis, meaning you're the same gender that you were the sex assigned at birth, because it's exhausting. If I'm in a meeting of 10 people and I'm the only one who shares my pronouns, it feels like vulnerable and tiring. So if everyone says, hi, I'm so and so, here are my pronouns, blah, 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 then that is easier and better for all of the genderful people in your life. So yes, please do that. Add them to your email signatures, even if you're not genderful. Oh my god, I had such a point of conflict with people at work about that.
I see a question come in, preferred pronouns versus personal pronouns, and
yeah, preferred pronouns is outdated because it's not a preference.
It's not preference. You have pronouns.
It's the accurate
and they
way to
are
address
yours.
them. Yeah.
Right? They're not like, I prefer you to use this. So it's not optional.
Because that makes it a choice.
Yeah, it's not optional. You use the pronouns I give you. The other thing I wanted to mention is they and them, and some folks will bring up the point of, oh, they're how do you refer to one person as they and them?
Oh my god.
I'm like, because that's actually a thing. Like, it's inside the dictionary now, as first person singular pronoun.
Well, also, we've used they as a first person singular when you don't know the gender of someone. The example I always give is like, if you let's say you're at a cafe and you see a phone sitting on a table, someone left their phone, I hope they come back for it.
Right.
Like, you don't say, I hope he or she comes back for it. It's clunky. It's clunky, right? I mean, technically, that's the old way for it to be right. But the Oxford English Dictionary has now added the singular they to their dictionary, so people can't throw it's not in the dictionary at the genderful beings anymore.
Yeah. Another point I want to make about not non-binary erasure is folks that have seen in print or anywhere the use of he or she. Like, just replace he or she with they.
Mm-hmm.
It reads just as fine. So, like, sometimes I'll read a book and then they'll choose like a pronoun to refer to the unknown person as, oh, well, we'll just use he everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it throws me off, and
It's
it actually
so
makes
weird.
me ill to read it. Like,
Well,
he, him, he.
and it erases women. It erases any trans or non-binary people. It's like assuming all the people engaging in this is men is like, I don't know. There's a word for it. It's not homophobic. It's like
It's
misogynist. I think it's misogynist. I think that's the word. Also, as a side note, Chaotic Queer asks, I have a question because I like both Fae Fair and they them, but I prefer Fae Fair. Is that a valid case of saying my preferred pronoun is Fae Fair? I think, Chaotic Queer, that when you introduce yourself, you could say my pronouns are Fae Fair or they them. Like, there's some folks in our Discord who have they she or she they. Perhaps they prefer she, but they is also acceptable. I think they're not preferred because they're both your pronouns, right? And so, I mean, bigger picture, you get to decide what works for you, full stop, right? This is my opinion that I'm sharing, but in the end, it is your call, it's your pronouns. I think that I would move away from preferred because people that you're talking to maybe don't have this deep of an understanding about pronouns. And so using the outdated phrase, even if you mean it in a different way, could be misconstrued and misunderstood pretty easily. Board game manuals are annoying for their pronoun usage. Yes, they are. Capybara has actually gotten out the red pen and corrected board game manuals
I
all the
have.
time.
Yes, I have. That is a thing I've done. And then I'll write to the company to say update your manuals to refer to they them, because anyone can play your games, not just men and women. There's non-binary people in the world and they exist. So
Cis people, you too can write anyone and tell them to change pronouns from he him to they them in all the things that they're writing.
yeah, yep.
Okay, Flair, what is this? Someone that uses someone that's super weird is who not only do people misgender non-binary people as though they're binary, but also may use they them for binary trans people when the person isn't going by that, literally negating the person's gender. So yeah, Flair, I think the piece there that's super weird or upsetting is when they're doing it intentionally to negate. I think something we touched on earlier is
Yeah.
when you're doing it because you don't know, like I don't know your pronouns, so I'm going to use they them, and I'm going to add an asterisk here. I have chronic pain. It impacts my ability to remember things, and I forget stuff all the time. I forget people's pronouns often. So if I call you they them and you are like a trans woman or a trans man on the binary, I am sorry. Feel free to correct me. Um, and for me, it's about my brain not working and retaining all the things that I wish it would. Now I'm touching my face more because I still have a headache. Yes. So video game architect says I was going to ask about he they actually. Yeah. So there is this whole other additional category of genderful beings called demi boys and demi girls. And
Yep.
since I am not one, I have a harder time adequately defining it. So I'm going to go pull up a definition, but do you have a thing to say about that?
Well, I also don't identify as a demi girl, or a demi boy, either one. I'm
So
not demi. I am fairly binary, kind of. I guess more on the feminine side. Um, I do have masculine qualities that I have retained because I was basically socialized male, like very, very male. And so I'm still trying to get myself to a point where I'm more socialized female, and sort of, this male side of me is more muted and just kind of what feels authentic to me. And what feels authentic to me is more of this female side of me, and there's masculine qualities that I identify with, but wouldn't I really wouldn't call myself any sort of demi. So do you have something to?
I do. I looked up on Gender Wiki on wikia.org. A demigirl, also called a demi-woman, demi-lady, or demi-female person, is a gender identity describing someone who partially but not fully identifies as a woman, girl, or otherwise feminine, whatever their assigned gender at birth. So you can be a demigirl and be amab or afab. They may or may not identify as another gender in addition to feeling partially a girl or woman. Demigirl can be used to describe someone assigned female at birth who barely feels connected or disconnected to the identification, but usually does not experience a significant enough dissociation to create a real physical discomfort or dysphoria. Demigirl can also be described as someone assigned male at birth who is trans feminine, but not wholly binary identified, so that they feel more strongly associated with female than male socially, physically, but not strongly enough to want to identify as woman. Demigirls also identify as demigender, non-binary, and or transgender. And part of this is it really just depends on like individual people on that piece. There is a lot of terminology and it just keeps
Yeah.
growing, but part of it's important to have it. Okay, so did you talk about these two surgeries or did we skip them?
I haven't talked about them yet. No.
Okay.
So
Trigger warning, we're gonna talk about surgery again. Here we go.
yeah. So different ways to raise one's voice as a trans woman. You can train it. You can get like a voice trainer and train it higher. And basically just strengthens the throat muscles to work your voice into a higher range. Or there's a surgery you can have on your vocal cords that'll tighten them up. A popular place that people like to go to is a place in South Korea called Yeson, Yeson, is one of the more popular places. And there's other places like that stateside also. There's a few different techniques that are fairly reliable and have good results. So do your research if you're interested in that. I have actually looked into having this done. Not too deeply, but it is something that interests me, because I really don't like hearing the sound of my voice. It sounds too low to me.
Oh.
It sounds too low. And
I just think you're like a hot butch woman.
I know. And this is like something else that other people will experience, is like they'll tell you your voice is perfect.
But you're allowed to feel like it's not good enough or not right for you.
Right.
Absolutely.
Whenever you're going through a transition, it is what feels right to you, what's going to make you feel more in your gender, what feels authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And to have my voice just a tad higher, just a little bit, would feel better to me.
And part of that too is like you call a call center for support for whatever thing, and they gender you correctly off the bat, and you don't have to go in and explain.
That's right.
Now the thing is, in most of those situations, I will never be gendered correctly, no matter what my voice sounds like, because people still think in the sir ma'am mentality.
Yes.
And like there's no like
Yeah.
the company has to be pretty forward thinking to realize they them is an option, and to not sir ma'am them. Now there's another piece of culture here that's important, because especially folks who have been in the military or from the southern part of the United States are very heavily taught you are respectful by using honorifics and you must do it. And so for me as a non-binary person, telling someone on the phone, especially when I'm dealing with my like car insurance folks who are very veteran and southern at the same time, like please do not use sir or ma'am. Like I've told them you can use like Mixter to talk about me, but their brains explode because Mixter is like, what even is that to them? So it's work. It is hard for some folks, and so there's this almost culture clash that ends up happening. It's really difficult.
Yeah. Yes. I've had to educate my local grocery store in a couple different places to drop honorifics altogether. Because some checker will sir me and I'm wearing like full female clothes, hair is all done up. Like, why would you do this? And I'll talk to the manager. I don't really want to say the name that is in my head because I think it's kind of a slur, but I'll take
stereotype, that's for sure.
It's a stereotype and I don't want to perpetuate it. So I'll give feedback on the receipt. There's ways to take the survey on the receipt. And so I do, and then I type a big old long paragraph about how honorifics should not be used in a grocery store because you can't assume anything.
Yep.
And there's different ways to make people feel respected and welcome, and have them keep coming back to your grocery store without using honorifics. So start teaching staff how to do that. And I've had to do that a couple times, and I've actually seen it done correctly. And it feels great to go to the grocery store and have them just say, "Thanks a lot." And I'm like, "You're welcome." And then have
Thank
a
you
big
for your business.
I have a smile on my face because I'm like,
stay.
I didn't get misgendered at the grocery store. Yay. And then I keep coming back because they did that. Right. So, maybe some people will get offended, like, "He didn't call me sir." I don't know. I don't know if people get offended by that.
But if you're still being thanked for your business, does sir really matter?
I don't know. Not to me. If you don't call me ma'am, I'm not going to get all up in your face about it. I'd be like, thanks for not erasing binary, non-binary people by the way you address me.
And Mir, on the mixter, or mix are all possibilities, but folks aren't necessarily familiar with those. It's true. So there's pronouns, and then there's sort of like a whole other pile of neopronouns, which are the more, so like he, him, she, her, and they, them are sort of the standard, air quotes, pronouns. And then for neopronouns, there's a whole pile of them. I'm going to read them because it's cool for people to hear what they are. There's ni and nim, z and here, fe and fair, and sear and shimmer are some of the more neopronouns that I've heard. There are more than just those. Those are the ones that we have as role menu pronouns in our Discord. And again, for folks that maybe missed the very first part of this, gender and sexuality are different. Gender is about one person, and sexuality is about two or more people. So, Video Game Architect had made a comment about, it's interesting that demigirl, demiboy, and demisexuality all use demi, but seems like demiboy and girl are very different from demisexuality. And that's because gender and sexuality are very different. I mean, the word trans is in front of all kinds of things. And, like, I don't know. They're not all super similar.
That's right.
I'm trying to think of the car part that has the word trans in it, and I'm forgetting what it is.
The transmission.
And insert transmission joke here.
Insert, like, there's also another name that people call a transmission that ends up being a slur.
Ooh, Esquire is a fun honorific.
So
I like that.
I correct auto parts places and auto mechanics places, like, don't use this slur to refer to a transmission. Just say the full word. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. So the last surgery, trigger warning for surgery, that I don't think we've talked about is this one.
Facial feminization surgery.
Mhm.
Okay. So if you've undergone testosterone poisoning like I have, your bones in your face get more pronounced. Like, I've got a big old chin on me. I know what my chin looks like on camera. It's really huge and it sticks out. And then there's like my jawline is really sharp and pronounced and big. And then
zoom
there's
in on your face. Hold on.
zoom in on my face.
Me
Okay.
too. Once I found the zoom button.
Zoom in. No.
I just got a pan. There you go.
Okay. So like my jawline right in here, like, it's big, right? So you look at someone with assigned female birth skull structure, and it looks more rounded, like it's rounded off
Instead of squared off.
instead of squared.
Mm-hmm.
There's also this brow ridge thing that happens like on above the eyes. There's this bone ridge here, and there's like an Adam's apple on a lot of people. I don't really have one, really, but it's there. It's tiny. And what facial feminization surgery does is it goes in and rounds off these bones.
Mm-hmm.
And it forms your face into one that looks a lot more like a female skull. And also shaves off does like this tracheal shave and shaves off this Adam's apple thing.
Is that multiple surgeries or one surgery?
It's usually one.
Really?
Yeah, it's all in one.
They just like cut you open and
don't-
eyebrows all at the same time?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, so your face is all bandaged up and all that. And then, like, I've seen really, really, really good results from facial feminization surgery. Like, you wouldn't be you take a glance at a person, like, after that, and you instantly gender them correctly. So I think, if you've got a lot of problems with people not taking one glance at you and gendering you one way, well, it's usually because of your head. So that's kind of an unfortunate fact. Some people just can't get away with their large bone structure. Like, I've got huge arms and hands, and yeah, my mom had huge arms and hands too. I don't know if it's like,
she's still alive.
yes,
And still has that.
Yes, that's right. And my grandmother, who isn't still alive, also had large hands. So I mean, like, part of it is genetic. But I mean, there's just aspects of myself that I cannot get away from, and that's just something I have to accept. It's one of those. It goes back to trans grief. Once you come out as trans, then you have to kind of accept yourself as being trans, and there might be like a transphobia piece, like I don't want to be trans. Then you have to accept yourself and go through this whole thing with yourself, and then you have to go through this whole thing with your family members, and it's just balls and balls of grief. Please talk to a therapist.
Talk to a therapist.
I am not a therapist. I can't be your therapist. Please go talk to a therapist if you have questions about this stuff.
Okay. I have one. I'm noticing your voice is dropping even lower in your register, perhaps because you're tired and have been talking a lot. Maybe. I know my voice does that when I get tired. It gets lower and lower. Two, I want to make sure we get to Rissa's question today. Do you feel that transphobia is rooted in misogyny? I don't know if Rissa's still lurking, but if you are, your question.
Big one.
This is a big one. I'm going to ice my neck some more. Think about it? Okay.
Think about a good answer to that.
I can think about something to talk about while you think about that. Have a good rest of our stream. Thanks, Nikki. Have a good whatever you're going to go do. Side note on gender dysphoria and shirts. When I made my merch store, I made sure to have shirts beyond just the unisex shirts, because unisex are often actually pretty masculine, and especially trans women, but perhaps also women in general, do not necessarily feel wildly comfortable or affirmed wearing unisex shirts. So, like, I know for you, the lower the neckline, the better.
Yes.
Because it is socially read by people looking at you in your clothes as more feminine.
Yes. Yep. So whenever I wear a t-shirt, I prefer it to be something that's like a scoop neck, or like, as open a neck as you can, V-neck. Having the crew neck with it's just like the circle where your head goes. It's a very male looking shirt, and you couple that with my large body frame and my male looking head, and everyone's thinking, oh, it's a guy. They don't even care about the hair. Don't even look at the hair. May not even have heard your voice come out of your mouth yet. And they'll be like, sir, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nope. Got it wrong. Okay, I have an answer.
Okay.
Transphobia is rooted in fear. It is a fear of something that you do not have an experience of. That is my perspective on this. There is a component where transphobia comes from misogyny. And I think that component is mostly exhibited by people who are TERFs, the trans exclusionary radical feminists,
or the feminists who think trans women aren't included.
Right. So I can't give a very educated answer, like to get too academic on this. I'll point to a good resource that folks can read, and that is Whipping Girl by Julia Serano, who is a trans woman. Basically wrote the textbook on this. I highly suggest, if you are a trans woman, trans female, to buy this book, the paper version of it, or the audio version of it, and either listen or read it cover to cover. It is like the trans woman's Bible. And don't let Whipping Girl kind of like throw you off, but it is a very it's a book that will educate folks on from the trans perspective on this very topic, on misogyny and transphobia and intersections between the two. but I do think that transphobia is rooted in fear. I think there's that doesn't have to have a misogyny component to it. I think it's more just like fear of the unknown. There's a lot of people that have never met a trans person, have never had sat down and had a conversation with them. They have no education about like past their biology class of it's XX and XY, it's all genetic. No, it's like more than that. There's like a whole spectrum that you're not even aware of, and it's there's a lack of knowledge about how fetuses in the womb acquire being trans in the first place. Um, lack of education, willful ignorance. It can come from a lot of different places, but I think transphobia is essentially rooted in fear.
Yeah. I mean, I also think misogyny is rooted in fear. Fear that, honestly, fear that women will treat men the way men have treated women. It's my sassy hot take right now. I feel like this question can also be someone choosing to be ignorant. Yep. Feminism approaching reactionary transphobes or farts. Feminism approaching reactionary transphobes better than TERF personally.
Yeah, that's why I say willful ignorance. It's someone choosing to be ignorant. Like they're not going to educate themselves. They made a snap judgment and they're going to stick to it.
Yeah.
Until internally they feel like they need to educate themselves more, which some people may do and some people may not.
So it looks like we have mostly biography questions left, and then one opinion question, which I don't actually have a very good answer for. Before we jump into those, are there any other questions folks in the chat have for us? Because I'm noticing some folks are dropping out because they need to go take care of themselves, which I fully support. So I want to give you all that opportunity for a moment here. Maybe while we both drink some water. Before moving on to this last category of questions.
I can throw people off and go into a lower register. I know I experience things in a different way.
How are my spoons? Mir asks. My spoons are medium low. My headache has gone. Oh, thank you for the 100 biddies, Karish. My headache has gone from like a 4 or a 6 down to about a 2. So the headache is getting better. And the food has helped with the energy levels. But yeah,
good.
I think I have no more than 1 hour left in me, maybe half an hour, possibly. Yes. Okay. So, I'm gonna pose the opinion question to the whole chat, and then we're gonna do biography questions. Headache is getting better. That's good. Yes. So the opinion question is, who are some queer role models for you? And that's a huge rabbit trail. We could just sit here and squee about like queer role models all the whole rest of stream. So I would rather let the chat kind of talk to each other about that while we go into some of these biography questions. So there's like 4 questions that are all pretty similar. I don't know if Burra is still hanging around, but I think Burra submitted one of them. So I'll let you go first, Cappy. The first chunk of questions is, what was it like growing up? How did you know you were trans or non-binary? What was coming out like for you? And when did you realize that the life you were living wasn't the life you wanted? So that's sort of like basically what was it like being, for you, trans from birth to coming out? What was that whole experience like?
Okay, so I'm one of those people that did not really realize that I wanted to be female at birth, like in my childhood. So I don't have that narrative. I think that's sort of another trope too.
Sorry.
Okay. Is that some people say like at age 3 or 4 that I want to be a girl or I want to be a boy or I think I am a boy or a girl. And that didn't happen for me. I didn't really have a realization like that. I did notice that I was different than the people around me, and I never knew why.
What are some examples?
I feel like I never could meet expectations of being a boy.
Yep.
And so I never really, there was always this like chasing approval from my father about like what I'm supposed to be doing. To the point where I would just I would learn what he wanted and then do it exactly how he wanted and learn how to do that exactly how he wanted it all the time, and just made that part of my personality, just kind of built that on the outside, sort of like a layer. Uh, but it didn't come from within. It was more just like, I'm doing this because you want me to. And I did a lot of that. And over the years, as a kid, those layers kind of grow on the outside until you are living in this shell that have been built for decades around other people's expectations of you. So I built a whole shell of myself of other people's expectations of what being a boy was, or what being a man was. And I was play acting the whole thing.
You're a very good play actor.
Yeah.
You played a boy on TV very well.
Yes. I'm like, what TV? Oh.
No TV, just
no
generally.
TV. Yes. So as far as like my childhood goes, I was the firstborn child. And there was a lot of people's expectations of what this firstborn child would be. And once they found out this firstborn child would be a boy, then they put all of these, they had all of these expectations that I should be fulfilling right before I was even out of the womb. So right when I came out, they're like boying me up. Like I never got a chance at all to be female at all, ever.
And that's an example of why the patriarchy hurts all genders.
Yes.
Because they had all these expectations of you.
It's like my dad's like, oh, I'm gonna teach him how to be a cowboy, and he's gonna learn how to rope and ride horses and do all these things, and really had a lot of expectations. And also his father had a lot of expectations too. And then like my mom's side of the family had expectations about what I would be. And so it was just like me learning about all of these expectations that people had of me and layering that on top, on the outside, like, here you go. I am exactly how you want me to be. Not allowing to come out of my shell and show those show pieces of my actual person. That just gets refocused back into myself. So I ended up really living in my head a lot. I ended up being very much just living this, play acting what's on the outside, but going back into my head and actually living in there.
So you were rather withdrawn and dissociated as a youth.
I was. Yeah, I was. School was an outlet where I felt like I could really excel because it was outside of the bounds of my family's expectations. It was more like things that come from within me is academics. So I felt like I could I could excel in that way and not have like a bunch of expectations around like male or female. You're just doing math. So there was that. Then I got really interested. I saw a computer being used for the first time, like in 5th grade, an Apple IIe.
Ooh.
And
how old are you?
5th grade. So
how old are you now? How old are you now?
I'm 45.
Okay. So like maybe 30 years, 40 years ago, 35 years ago. 35 to 40 years ago. You're so cute, though. Look at your dumb
19.
puppies.
Let's call it 1983. God.
Just by the by. Okay.
Okay, 1983. And I got a notion that I really wanted to spend my career, my life in computers, because I thought that I really had an aptitude for it, and it turns out I was right. So I went through my youth kind of dissociated from myself and my body, and I didn't really have a connection to my physical being. I was living in my head. And then puberty hit at 14, and then things started happening to my body that I didn't really like. And I sort of felt worse and worse and worse, and I went deeper and deeper into my head and more dissociated. Managed to like focus on my academics to the point where I'm like graduated high school with like top 10% of my class. Started to, went to college for computer science, and then there were things that that was like a compulsion of mine, was to like remove my body hair. Like I didn't know why I needed to do this, but I did. I needed to just get it done and remove it all and shave it all off. And I've done a bunch of ways, like waxing and sugaring and shaving and nairing and all sorts of different ways. So it was eventual. It was like a slow build up, and your camera's kind of gotten
Fuzzy.
fuzzy.
I'll fix it. Ta-da.
There we go.
Fix.
It wasn't until around 2013 when I really figured out what was going on within myself. And then I tried coming out to my ex-wife, and had a bunch of talks about like what the implications of doing that would be. And then I went back in the closet for a year because I didn't want to lose my family. I didn't want to lose my marriage. It wasn't important. It wasn't, at that time, it wasn't important enough to me to disrupt the apple cart. And I wanted to keep my family together, because it was too important.
Okay, wait. So just to punctuate what you're saying here, you realized you were trans, but didn't want to come out because you didn't want to lose your wife and kids.
That's right.
Okay. Then what happened?
Then,
Like, how did that impact your mental health?
Yeah, it really impacted it quite badly. Like once I had that realization, it went all, that next year was really stressful for me, and I started getting anxiety attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to drink more to self-medicate.
So did you already drink before that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had been an alcohol drinker since age 5, because it's the farm, and that's what everyone did. Don't drink, kids. It's bad for you. That's PSA. So I had been a drinker, and I used it to self-medicate my condition. And I started drinking more that next year until I challenged myself. Like I realized I hadn't gone a year without drinking since age 5, and then I thought that was really tragic. And I challenged myself. I wonder what it would be like if I didn't drink for a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
drink
alcohol.
Yeah. Not water. You drink plenty of water, I'm sure.
I would be dead.
His scar says, don't dehydrate either.
I would be dead. Like no showers, it would absorb through the skin.
Showers.
No, it's alcohol. I had a penchant for it. So I stopped drinking in 2014. And 2 months later, I came out to myself as trans.
You have journal entries and stuff too.
Yeah.
Hydrate or dihydrate. That's right.
Um,
You want to drink some water? Since we're getting the hydrate or dihydrate reminder from Mirami.
yeah.
Yeah. So this is getting into this other biography question that's related to this. How is your mental health impacted before you came out, after you came out, and after HRT? So there's like three time points in the question. Mental health, like
Before I
looking
came
at
out,
the story through the lens of mental health.
before I came out, I felt dissociated. I felt like I didn't have a connection to my body.
Mhm.
Like I wore baggy t-shirt and baggy jeans and didn't care. Like I look at myself in the mirror and I didn't see the person I wanted to see, and I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know what to do here. I had no point of reference. I didn't know I was trans. I didn't know what trans meant. Um, I didn't know that what I was feeling was trans related. I just felt crappy, and then I would drink, and then I felt better. Um, and I didn't put two and two together, but I did know that But the thing that did persist the entire time since I was a child is that I was different from other people, and I never knew why. And I always had this question: why am I different from other people?
Mhm.
And it led me down a lot of different avenues to figure it out. Um, one of them is that I self-diagnosed myself as autistic. So that's a whole nother thing I haven't even touched into, which I'm not going to right now.
Yeah.
Because that's like
Side note on that topic, we will be doing Ask Me Anythings for a bunch of different diversity related things, including neurodiversity, race.
Yep.
We're gonna have special guests on for race since we're both white. Other things that I've forgotten because I have a headache. There's at least 4 that I have. Oh yeah, leftist politics is another one. So yeah, we've got this one is gender, we have neurodiverse, leftist politics, race, and there's a bunch more also. I'm hopefully, maybe, we'll see, no promises, but in my ideal situation, once a month we would have a stream like this that's like a special talk show discussion type stream where we talk about these important topics with special guests and things. Yes. So, mental health. What was it like, mental health growing up? How did you know you were trans? What was it like coming out for you? You were talking about um you didn't want to lose your wife, which was not me. It's a different wife. I'm not a wife. Anyways, just misgender myself.
You're not a wife.
I'm not a wife.
Not a
I'm
wife.
a spouse or
You're
a beloved.
You're my infinite.
Or an infinite. Yeah, infinite is the word we came up with for me.
That's right.
But yes, so that's where we were in the story.
Yeah, we were.
You were married to the parent of your children. Mental health. How did that go? Also alcoholism or something?
Yeah, alcoholism ? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Alcohol is certainly a problem for some folks. I was able to just stop drinking all of a sudden, and that is usually not how you're supposed to do that, but that's how I did it. And I had no other real fallback mechanism besides smoking weed, essentially.
But you don't do either of those things at this point.
I don't do anything else besides drink coffee.
Coffee.
Coffee. So before it was kind of this like awful muted existence. Like I felt like I should have emotions and I didn't. Like my children were born, I didn't cry during it. Like I can't imagine that happening anymore. Just like important moments in my life where I felt like I should be experiencing joy and just experiencing like, oh, this is just another day, whatever. Now after I came out, I felt relief actually to have found the actual solution. Like all of the pieces fit. Once I figured out what gender dysphoria was, and it was actually what I was experiencing, and this is like, oh, you're trans, and to treat this, you go on HRT and transition to another gender. In one way, I was relieved to have found the answer. This is the answer. This is the one answer. that I had been looking for years. It's also really freaky, like, oh my God, that means that I'm gonna get divorced and there's this whole thing and possibly lose my family but also my mental health. There was like it was very a very Hecate moment, let's just say. There's like crossroads. Which path shall you choose? The path of alcoholism, where I just stay the person I am and uh like be an alcoholic dad and not really realizing who I am and living in just this pit of despair. There's that path. There's the path of me just committing suicide and having my kids go through that, which I was not allowed. I was not thinking at all. That's a possibility. It's like, oh, that's instantly I know. Um, I never really considered that, and I'm just like, that's path number two, but not really one I'm gonna take. Um, then there was the path of, oh, you could do the healthy thing and actually like come out, take our HRT and transition, and then your mental health will be, you'll be a better person for it. And I'm like, well, that's really scary. I'll lose my wife and kids and my family, and I'll have to navigate the whole thing. It's a lot of work, but so I ended up reading a lot. I ended up reading a lot of accounts of people who have done the same thing. Um, I have talked to other trans elders, about how they navigated it. And I got enough data together to say it's worth it.
Yeah. There's a couple pieces of your story right here that I've heard you say before that I want to highlight.
Sure.
I've heard you say that you felt like you came to this crossroads moment in your life and your options were basically die or come out.
Yeah.
Because it either would have been death by suicide or death by alcoholism. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
And so like coming out became the best thing you could do for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was the healthy path forward. It was the path forward where my kids would actually see a parent that was healthy and happy, and I wanted that for them.
Yeah. It takes a lot of courage. Bye, CQ. Thanks for hanging out.
It takes a
Have a good
ton
night.
of courage to do that.
I forgot the other thing I was going to say, so keep talking. I'll remember it or I won't. Thanks for being here. Yes.
So that was after I came out. It was more of a relief, but also a lot of like fear. And I got to the point where I'm thinking, I've got to try HRT, and to do that I need to go find a therapist that will like get me there. So there's this whole path, like if you figure out like you're trans, then you find a therapist that can help navigate that for you and get
you don't have to be on HRT to be trans, but it is a common piece.
It is a common piece. Yeah. Everyone, basically at the time that you figure out you're trans, you've got a choice to make about how you want to pursue that.
And that choice can change any time, right? Like you don't have to choose once and that's the end of it.
No.
You can continue to choose.
Your transition basically goes on for the rest of your life.
This is my pretty trans journal where I write all my trans thoughts. Thanks, left's right hand. Have a good peace out and dinner.
I have trans journals too.
Multiple trans journals.
There's a lot of fear that have come out in those journals. I go back and read it and like, wow, I was really fearful back then. And I made the choice to go into HRT. Personally, I wanted to medically transition, as they say. Because
medically transition.
That's what they call it. Medical transition is when you go on HRT. So I did that, and it was amazing how being on estrogen really calmed me down, and it was one of those moments where it was just like, this is exactly what I needed. And from there it was a no-brainer. Like, if this is if this is what estrogen is doing from me right now, of course this is going to work for me. Now, not everyone will have this realization. And it does take a lot of like back and forth. I will say before that, I was diagnosed with low testosterone when I went to the doctor, and they put me on testosterone treatments.
So you were possibly intersex at birth, like XXY.
Yes, possibly. I don't know what sort of flavor of intersex that is, but I have suspicions of my own intersex nature. Yes, I have not pinned it down. The doctors did a lot of tests on me to figure out why I was low testosterone, and couldn't, and so they just called it hypogonadism. Like, you're not making enough testosterone,
Which means your gonads are insufficient.
Pretty much.
Hypo instead of hyper.
I mean, I had children.
Underwhelming gonad syndrome.
I had children, so at least they worked in some way.
Well, right? And they put you on testosterone first when you had that diagnosis, and then you experienced that.
As I did.
And how was that for you?
It was awful. It was awful. Awful.
Here's my next question for you. How has HRT impacted you physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually? Answer any and all of those you feel you would like to.
Okay.
The closest one to what you do.
So, I will say that before HRT, I felt pretty clumsy, like physically clumsy, and also, I've had a lot of problems actually having words come out of my mouth, like from my brain to my mouth. Like, it's been a big problem for me. So physically, HRT also changes your upper body strength. So I don't have as much upper body strength as I used to. I used to be like burly. And
that's so interesting.
Huh?
Your body strength changed. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it does.
Does that mean if I go on T, I'll get like swole?
Yes. I mean, there's the potential of you getting swole. Yes.
That's fun.
So yeah,
I can bench press the cat.
Upper body strength kind of diminishes. But physically, my coordination got better. Like, it felt like my brain and my body could talk to each other better. Emotionally, it opened me up emotionally quite a lot. Before I wasn't able to cry, and now I'm able to cry at the drop of a dime. Like anything that touches me deeply, I'm just like in tears.
It's really cute.
It is. It's actually really nice to feel emotions. It also is one of those things where if you go on HRT, you go through, well, for me, it's a female puberty. Like, I'm going through a second puberty.
Mm-hmm. As an adult person.
I felt my brain transform.
How long have you been on HRT?
For 5.5 years.
So you've been going through female puberty for 5.5 years?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm sort of at the tail end of it, but also I still feel my brain kind of adjusting. It got to the point where now I can't really get into the same mindset that I started with. Like, I call the person I was my dead brother.
Mm-hmm.
Because it feels like it's actually another person to me now. That person is another person to me now.
Who's close to you, like a sibling would be.
Yes.
But also who's gone.
Who is gone.
Yeah.
I can't access their memory. Well, I can access their memories and their experiences, but not. The closest I can come is to describe it like Star Trek Trill, where you've got host bodies, and you've got maybe a male host body you've lived in for a little while, and then you hopped into a female one. You can still reference the experiences and memories of the male one, but it's not really you anymore. It's now you're female. So it's kind of like that.
What if you're a Trill and you're non-binary?
Then you could be watching Star Trek Discovery Season 3.
Okay. Just saying.
Yes.
There's 4 genders in 2. But back to HRT impacting you physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually.
So emotionally, I felt really opened up, and like I'm able to experience different emotions. It was and going through female puberty, it's mostly teaching you how to deal with those emotions in a way where it's healthy and you use them for what they are meant for. All emotions are valid, is what I learned. Even fear and anger and all of those are all valid emotions, and they teach you something, and then they go away. They let go. And if you don't dwell on them, they teach you and tell you things. They're a messenger, and I was taught how to really deal with them in a healthy fashion, because that's not something that I learned as a guy. As a guy, I learned to like swallow all emotion, and the only thing you're able to experience is joy and anger, mostly anger. Um, Mentally, I felt my brain transform. Like I felt myself moving through different states mentally. Like I could feel more connected to myself. Spiritually, my spirituality is um really unchanged actually. Uh, I grew up sort of atheist, um, but also have a kind of a deep connection to the earth and to things like rocks, trees. Like I felt connected to them. I felt connected to sort of the universe and planets and stars and all that stuff. Later on, learning about the quantum world and physics and how chemistry and physics and all of those things work together with math. And so it all sort of like adds up to me being kind of a, just mul- I kind of identify with multiple things, but not really any one thing, but very pagan. I would say I'm very pagan, you know, universe lover, I guess. So HRT had no effect on that,
Mm.
actually.
What about like if you have a conception of like a spiritual version of yourself, has that version of yourself been a different gender than you at any point? Like, I'm imagining people working with like astral bodies or, meditating or doing trance work or doing any sort of trance journeying in their astral body being different from their physical self.
My
It's getting real witchy up in here right now.
if I'm talking about
Welcome
an
to the
astral body
adventure.
or a higher self or something like that, I mean, I think in my
It's a big
youth,
question.
it was more like a genderless,
Mm-hmm.
sort of genderless higher self that would inform me on the things that I needed to do for myself. Now it's sort of got a gender, but really not. Um, I've observed I've observed my astral body before, just once. It was a glowing ball of yellow light, and it had this like um very warm feeling coming from it, and it felt like I need to identify with this somehow. Like this is sort of who I am and what my purpose is. So, I mean, yes, it gets very sort of existential a little bit. And I don't really talk about it much, but also it's sort of genderless. I suppose my higher self is sort of genderless.
Mm, that's cool. I like it.
I don't really identify with like deists or gods. Doesn't really fit into my worldview. So my higher self, I feel like, is just like, the smart part of my brain telling me you should probably not drink anymore. That's what happened. Sitting around a campfire one night, and my higher self like put together a bunch of things to show me, like, look at all these things. This means that you can't drink anymore, and maybe you should challenge yourself to not drink for a year. And then I'm like, you're right. I can't. I got to go do this. So that's usually how it goes.
It seems like some sort of spirituality and like gender and sexuality conversation is another AMA that would be really juicy for us to do at some point. But maybe not today, because also we've been live for over 3 hours. I just want to circle back to some of these questions and see. I think it might have been Mariah asked, essentially, is the puberty feeling always around for you, or do you ever
Oh yeah.
arrive
Okay.
or finish like trans adolescence? Do you ever finish trans adolescence?
I think so. Actually, I felt like I have arrived in a way. Like it. So what it felt like for me is like right when I came out, I felt like I always felt like I was immature, like I was naive and immature. And why can't I feel like the age that I'm at? Why can't I feel like that? Um, it almost felt like I didn't make it through the other puberty that I was in. And in a way, it wasn't really the right puberty for my brain to be in anyhow, because the brain was formed with estrogen. Um, so that's why my brain needs estrogen to run. So going through a male puberty, it's not going to do it for me. As I went through puberty, I felt my brain transform into one that wasn't so adolescent. And I felt my identity actually solidifying into something where it's solid. So now I have a solid identity of myself being female. Like I look at myself and I'm like, I don't think of myself as male anymore. Like there's no, like it felt like I've arrived for sure. So yes, I think there is a finish, but also there isn't. Because since I was not socialized female, there will always be a huge learning curve that I'll always be going through to be always being socialized female.
That's been an interesting piece in our relationship too, since we were assigned different genders at birth. We were socialized the different genders than we are now, and so then we end up teaching each other some of the things we were socialized to know. Like if I ever had facial hair, I know for a fact you could teach me how to shave my face. And like there's also things that I've taught you. I'll let you pick an example if you want, but you don't have to. But just in general, I've seen the ways that we sort of support and help each other learn those pieces.
You've taught me things, but also there's a lot of pieces that are very patriarchy based, right? That we've had to work to unlearn.
We've had to decolonize them together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that piece too. And also you don't identify female.
It's true.
So socializing me female coming from you is a little interesting.
But I learned all that stuff. I had to learn it. Like I used to be a pretty girl with curly hair and nice eye makeup and would sing in choir as a soprano one and be just the fanciest whatever. But it was an act that I was putting on, just like you were putting on being a boy.
I think the biggest share that you've done with me is actually just being present with my emotional states and not having to like deeply question them, which is very refreshing, and it's helped me grow as a person.
Just let you feel your feelings without trying to fade them or fix them or address them.
Yes, absolutely.
Or assuit them.
So you have helped
address or assuit.
You've helped me get through part of my puberty.
Aw.
You have.
Aw. I also just relentlessly tell you how pretty you are.
You do. And I relentlessly tell you how handsome you are.
It's
just
true.
like your hair makes my heart throb.
We're so cute.
It's so nice.
I get haircuts and your heart goes flutter flutter.
Oh, yes.
I got my haircut on
there was one time
Friday.
where you got your haircut.
Saturday, Thursday. Yeah.
Remember that one time where you got your haircut and then we went out to dinner and I was just
you just stared at me all dinner. Big grin on your face.
Looking at you.
So cute.
So handsome.
So cute.
So
okay, the last question I have on my giant list of questions, we've hit so many questions today, good job us, is what are some ways your life has improved since coming out? And end on a high note.
Want to take this one?
First?
Yeah.
Or total?
You. No, you and then me.
Okay. What are some ways life has improved since coming out? Well, first of all, there's been a lot of coming outs, right? There
Mhm.
was came out as bi, came out as lesbian. Much later came out as non-binary. For a while in between these two, between the lesbian and the non-binary, I was poly for like a little while, and then I realized that at least for me, like poly is too much work to do ethically. So I'm not against other people having poly relationships. I just don't frankly have the spoons to do it. So
Yeah.
anyways, so there's also ways that like you don't just come out once, you come out in every new context. So like coming out at work, you get a new workplace, you have to come out at work again. Like come out to your friends, and then you get new friends, you have to come out to the new friends, coming out to
Mhm.
your family, and then your gender or your sexuality changes again, you have to come out again. Like it just doesn't end. But I would say for me, coming out is helpful because I get to live as my authentic self in the world. I have less of the ongoing like hiding that needs to happen. And I am way more confident. Like getting this haircut and wearing these clothes, I feel really good in them. I feel really like I have more self-power when I'm presenting in a way that
Mhm.
makes sense to me. And that's more attractive to other people, not only in a sexuality way, but also in like a people hiring me way. If I went to a job interview in a dress, I would be so uncomfortable and I would not get the job. If I went to the same interview in this outfit, I would feel way better and would be much more likely to
Yeah.
get the job. There's probably more things I could say, but I want to read the things people are saying in chat. So tag, it's hear it. In what ways has your life improved since coming out?
My life has done a 180 to 180-degree turnaround since I have come out. As far as my life improving. Uh, I came from a place. Before I came out, I came from a place where I was a white man, heterosexually married to a person that had 2 children and a house, and you know everything you could ask for, or a stable family. But I wasn't happy with myself. Wasn't happy with myself, and I was drinking too much, and I felt horrible, and I was suffering anxiety attacks, and I wanted a vagina, and this was not compatible with my lifestyle. Um, so I took it upon myself to transition and change my entire life. Essentially, I stopped drinking, I stopped smoking pot, I became female, took HRT, bought the clothes, changed my name, changed all of my documentation, came out at work,
Got
got
divorced,
divorced.
had some relationships,
Yep, had a few
found
relationships.
me.
Found you the most wonderful partner I have ever experienced.
Honey bunny.
And I had to marry you. I just had to.
You did. We did it.
Yes.
We did it.
So when I first
So
met
wholesome and cute.
Meowster, I I said you are worth waiting for to them. And I would wait, however long that they needed to have to, you know, uh to assess the situation to be able to go out with me. So I we took it slow, and they ended up being a very awesome partner, and it's very, very good. So I am really happy. Like I've done a whole 180 on my life. I feel like I'm the healthiest I've ever been. Like I've dropped a lot of weight. I've stopped all of these bad practices. I stopped eating sugar. That's like a big one.
Mhm.
Um,
So there's like a lot of numbing practices you were doing before
Oh yeah,
that you've stopped now because you feel more authentically yourself and you don't have to numb out anymore.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And like I feel like I can just be myself. Like there's no shell that I have to construct. There's nothing. There's no like fake piece of me.
Because your egg has cracked.
My egg is cracked.
You hatched. Hooray. Do you have a hatch day or something? Do you have like a trans birthday?
Yeah, I call it my HRT birthday.
Okay.
It's it was April of 2015.
So what's more important to you, your trans birthday or your birthday? Which do you like more?
Trans birthday probably.
Okay.
Like my birthday, like uh it just reminds me of how old I am.
So the other day I was at the doctor's office, and because I'm the and spouse on the insurance card, I had to remember your birthday, and I totally remembered your trans birthday instead of your belly button birthday.
Oh,
And I was like, let me look at my phone. Hold on. I'm sorry. The person was probably like, why don't they know their spouse's birthday? Like, oh, you know what? I have memory issues. It's fine. Meowster asking the important partner questions. Oh, it's so fun. I love it. Oh.
and I think like doing all of that has actually made me look younger. I mean, there is that benefit too. And I do wear like as far as let's touch into makeup. That is it's kind of a trans trope anyway, trans women trope of like in the media, you always see like trans women doing all their makeup and everything. I did try the makeup when it first came out. I tried to do all of that and went to like all these different places to help me teach and do the foundation and mascara and all that stuff. I like the look of my freckles too much to put any sort of foundation on, and my skin's good enough anyway that I don't need to wear makeup there. And I don't like eye makeup, and I don't wear really anything.
So you can be a trans woman and be sort of
I am
like en natural.
Oh yeah, I am wearing no makeup right now.
Mhm.
Zero
Me
makeup.
neither.
So
I had a shower. That's how I got ready to be
I got
on
a shower, and
camera.
the one thing I do focus on is my hair. My hair is kind of important to me, especially if I'm on camera.
Your hair looks great though.
Thank you.
I love the curls.
I do too. Um, I do wear I do facial moisturizer, and that's it. I do that after every shower every day. I put that on, and
So you have a skincare routine, but not
like a
makeup
skincare
routine.
routine. But there is no makeup. I don't do makeup. I do sometimes put lipstick on, but then it's weird, and I'm just like, it's got a weird texture, and I'm like, meh, licking it, and just and then you get weirded out when you're kissing me, and I'm like, I don't want something to come between you and I.
That's kind. I wear lip balm though, because I don't like having crusty lips personally.
Yeah.
So Mariah was sharing that. Is it terrible for me to want to be that for someone? I just want to dress up and talk about makeup and do hair and all of it for anyone wanting it that doesn't have the experience. And my response is essentially, any trans woman or woman in general who wants that, like, A plus.
I think a lot of trans people that come out really do try to experiment with the makeup thing, thinking that they need to, because it's a lot of pressure to I mean, there's a lot of realizations about oneself that one has to go through. I think I came to the realization that makeup is not helping me. I was once ridiculed in public for wearing makeup, like actually like laughed at once, and I think that really affected me deeply.
That's really hard.
Yeah,
What was the gender of the person?
it was a female and a male person. Well, it was
Yeah.
two.
Were
It
they
was
like
two
a
of them.
couple, do you think?
They were a couple. Hmm.
Mm.
I was trying to sell an RV to them,
Oh,
and
that's right. I've heard the story.
they
Yeah.
came out to go look for it, and then when they took one look at me, they laughed and drove away.
So they were like transphobic
Yeah,
weirdos.
yeah, and it was just like, wow, really? you drove all the way up here to see an RV and then you just like turn around and leave. It's weird.
That is weird. What here's a question. What ways have you experienced being socially female that have surprised you? I can think of like one story that I'm fishing for here, but I also don't know if you have other stories also. I'm thinking about the Taekwondo story, by the way. The person in the street in the Taekwondo story.
Oh, that's a good one. I think it's like the solidarity that I've felt with women and how quickly they cis women, yeah, and how quickly they have come to my side and wanted me to like participate in the things with them, especially at work. It felt weird at first.
That the cis women were including you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also awesome.
Weird and awesome.
Yeah, like
what's an example?
Well, going to public restrooms.
Oh, okay.
And then they were helping me like navigate that whole thing and standing up for me, and it felt very it felt really cool. It felt really good to have that support. Because it is a scary thing to navigate going into a women's restroom for the first time as a trans woman. It's scary, especially in public.
Yeah.
Because I would just like bolt in there. Like I'd open the door, I'd just like quickest find a stall to go in and get in there.
So people wouldn't see you.
Yeah. Like it's in and out. It's like you get in there. What's the first stall that is open, and you bolt in there. You don't even care which one it is.
Okay. Personal question that you don't have to answer.
Sure.
Do you stand or sit to pee? People are wondering. I know the answer, but people wonder these things about trans people. So I'm asking the awkward question.
I sit to pee because I have to train myself out of standing. Because I am about to have surgery where I'm going to be sitting to pee the whole rest of my life. So actually, when I first came out to myself, it was one of the things that I told myself, like, okay, you're sitting to pee from now on.
So that was one of the first things that you changed.
Yeah.
Because you can do that without any hormones, without any therapy.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, there's different techniques, that I'm not going to get into. But it is possible to do. So I bolt into the nearest stall, look straight ahead, do my business, try to like not make any sudden movements. and then when I'm done, bolt to the sink, wash my hands as quick as possible and get out. So it is like, if you really want to know the trans experience of going to a bathroom, it is absolutely terrifying at the beginning. And it is not something to fear, because the most scared, it's kind of like encountering a snake. Who is most scared, the snake or you? It's going to be the snake. They don't want to get like eaten. That's why they're like curling up to attack you. No, it's not like that. Trans people are the most scared in a bathroom. All of them are. I'll just blanket statement that one right now. No matter what gender you are. All I want to do is get in and get out. I don't want to like, there's no looky-loo thing. There's no like even talking. I just don't want to do that. I want to do I just want to pee and get out. That's what I want to do. So solidarity with cis women. Like they'll even like go out to lunch with you and like, and we're back.
Didn't mean to push the button, but I did push the button. Sorry. So cis women blocking your
Yeah.
genderfulness. Tell us more.
So they like were attempting to socialize me, and I was absorbing it like a sponge. Like I knew what they were trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
and I just like,
What if someone invited you to like a Stitch and Bitch circle?
oh, I'd totally go. Oh, I would so go with that.
So if Mariah has a Stitch and Bitch, I don't know if Mariah does, would you go to that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So cis women, if you want to support your trans women friends, invite them to your activities.
Trans women are women.
Uh-huh.
They are. Trans men are men. They are. Non-binary people are non-binary. They are.
See, for me, it's like, I don't know what activities I want to be invited to. Maybe just the things that are my interests.
Yeah.
But when people like advertise events as like, this is a women-only event, and they don't say non-binary in the description, I don't go. Even if they mean like, oh yeah, whoever.
Yeah. Well,
anyone who's not a cis man. Don't like you though, because you stitch better than most. I just don't like bitching.
I just want to also say F. J.K. Rowling.
Yep.
I mean, I would say the F word, but I don't want to.
Just said the B word like 4 times. Sorry about it. I used up all of our cuss points.
Cuss points. Good. So, like, there's this whole thing where, you know, women feel like they need to have a safe space for themselves. Cis women feel like they need to have a safe space for themselves, and I do recognize the need that there needs to be a safe space for folks to feel like they're not going to be assaulted.
Yep.
But also, trans women have their own traumas too. We are not men, even though we may have some of the same bits and pieces. They are not the same.
That's true.
And so I would say seriously look into, if you encounter a space like that, try to go a little deeper into and figure out why it's set up that way. Because it could be based in fear, and I appreciate spaces that aren't, and recognize trans women and as included in those spaces as they are, because I think the realization that we're really no different.
Yeah.
It's just that our bodies look different, but our brains are the same.
So here's a spicy question.
Sure.
What should cis allies do when trans and non-binary people tell them things like J.K. Rowling, boo, or like the new Cyberpunk 2077 that came out, and how like trans, I don't know if phobic is the right word, but trans fetishizing and harmful to trans people. If a trans person tells a cis person, or a non-binary person tells a cis person that something is harmful to them, what should the cis person do?
Listen.
Mm-hmm.
Educate themselves, and try to take the perspective of the person that they're listening to.
Right. So like I saw someone tweeted earlier this week about how their trans friends told them don't play Cyberpunk 2077, which just came out this week. Everyone's all streaming it and gaga about it, because it's problematic for trans people. And so that means don't spend your money on this game, don't play it publicly, don't play it privately, like don't support this thing. And so they said they hadn't read any of the articles written by trans people about why it's bad. A friend asked them, don't do it, and so they didn't. that was enough for them. And to see an ally to the trans community post that publicly on Twitter was a huge deal. Like, I was so grateful to see that they would just write that. And I think the same goes for any diverse population telling the majority population or the empower population, right? Because the folks who are in power, who are the default, my feelings about that, but aren't always actually the majority. It seems like whenever, I think oppressed is the word I want here. Whenever an oppressed population tells their allies, this is harmful, don't do it, they should just not do it. Full stop. Listen to the people that are telling you, because it takes us energy and spoons and courage to even say to someone else, this is oppressive, don't do it. And so then to belabor the point and have to argue about it is exhausting. Mm-hmm. And like, if you want to argue about it, go argue about it with other allies. Don't argue about it with the population that is telling you it's oppressive. Because otherwise, you're putting the labor in the wrong place, and it's really tiring. So,
So I see some comments about why must I dislike the art just because the artist is not the art? That touches into a subject called death of the artist, which is like you should be able to separate the art from the artist. And I think it really is a personal choice on that. There's different. I've read different thought pieces around J.K. Rowling and Death of the Artist, and whether it is possible to separate art from the artist in this instance. And my personal take is that it's very hard to do that with J.K. Rowling because J.K. Rowling is not dead, and continuously tries to take their world and tie it back into their own misogyny and their own transphobia and their own transphobia. So as much as their much as their fandom wants to stand on their own and have their own voice, J.K. Rowling continuously pulls that creation back towards herself and uses it as a platform for her own transphobia. So it's very hard to separate the two because it's actively being tied back. It's trying to be tied back to these thoughts, and it's unfortunate. I think the fandom has been developed and well loved by a lot of folks, including a lot of trans people, and there's a lot of sadness around how it's being used against them now, and it's just unfortunate.
So Mirami makes on the flip side, sort of a counterpoint question: what should you do if a trans person is still choosing to play that game for their own reasons or read that series for their own reasons? And I think it gets back to the, like, you're not going to help and support trans people by attacking them about how they're being trans. And trans people are not a monolith. Like, we are not all the same. We are not all going to agree about things. Also, there's different levels of access to education. There's, like, people come out as trans at different levels developmentally. And so just because one person or group of people maybe decides they're not going to participate in the systems that oppress them, it doesn't mean that all trans people either know that that's an option, right? Especially if you are, say, the only trans person in your conservative small population town. Like, there's a reason so many, like, non-binary and trans people are in the big cities or adjacent suburbs to the big cities, because, like, in the little bitty towns, you don't find anyone who's like you. And so it's harder to learn. I mean, the internet has really changed and helped with that, but still there's a lot of ways that especially transgender, non-conforming, and non-binary youth are really isolated from their elders. Anyway, the cat has found the treat I left over there for her. Yes. So yeah, I think people don't always necessarily think about or know the impact of what they're doing, and they may not know better, you know? And so what happens there also is there's the possibility of the shock of playing a video game that you think is fine, and then all of a sudden here's this really transphobic piece you weren't expecting, and then you have feelings about it. Capital F, feelings. I think also, it's if you somehow get access to the game, like the producer is giving out free keys, access keys, or you borrow your friend's copy for a little while or whatever, it's different than giving the company your money. Like one of the authors that I was reading who was critiquing Cyberpunk said, even at the end, like, it's complicated for me because I still want to play the game and check it out, but I would never spend my money on it. And so there's that piece, which doesn't mean go buy copies of a transphobic thing for your trans friends. But I also think, though, there are other creators who are making things in genres that are doing a better job of thinking about oppression and doing their best to take it out, right? I mean, dismantling oppression is an ongoing, lifelong process, and it's hard because it's countercultural to the overculture. And so it takes a lot of time and effort, and it is often to never done perfectly. But I think what matters is the attempt, is the effort. And so, like, taking time to dig deeper, and instead of just going with the major advertised games or like tabletop genres or whatever, like actually trying to educate yourself about what's actually available, what is written by trans and non-binary people, like what resource, like what entertainment is out there by those folks. Here's a hint, this channel is one. What is written by people of color? Like if we're looking for a tabletop role-playing system that is less or not racist, like why don't we look to what's being written by people of color, for example? It's something that we are thinking about and wrestling with actively in our Monday game. So anyways, blah blah. I can get really soapboxy about this topic. There's a great itch.io bundle that is out for alternative cyberpunk games. I'll go find the link and post it in our Discord if anyone is interested. I think that's cool that there's a bundle. I think one of the games, isn't it Neocab? Wasn't someone playing Neocab the other day? And Mir, you were enjoying that? Anyways, we could go on and on, but when people tell you they're being oppressed, believe them. Don't argue with them, and do your part, basically. Is there anything else that you want to share tonight with folks that are listening in?
I appreciated all the questions that came in. I mean, it really does. Now that I've answered quite a lot, I know that there's also a lot more that could be said. And if you're interested in hearing or learning more about the trans experience, there's definitely some resources you can go and read about or listen about. I mean, there's TED Talks, there's books, there's audiobooks, there's all sorts of resources out there. I would say if you have a interest in hearing, personal experiences or just, topics in general, use the Discord to ask questions, and I can try to answer them for you or point you in a direction. I think it's great that you're seeking out information and trying to educate yourselves. I know that I did. Whenever I found out I was trans, I read every book that I could about it and got all sorts of different perspectives about things, including a few that, perspectives of people that didn't really understand what it was all about.
Trying to figure out who we're gonna go raid.
So thank you for the questions, and
yeah,
I enjoyed talking to everybody.
don't attack people in their stream choices is the main point that I heard there. You're glad that we did this. Oh, thanks, Champ Rule. Beware that when you ask questions that folks may not answer, may not always have the energy resources at the time to answer. It's true. Asking people to educate you, especially if you're not paying them, is exhausting.
Yeah.
It's important to pay people who are oppressed for their time educating people who are not oppressed, because it's really tiring. It's resource intensive. Like, the question may only take 5 minutes, but the impact it has on the whole rest of their day, like, it might actually cost them their whole day to answer your one question that you ask them. So, you know, if you can, pay them a day's wages. Like,
Yeah.
I want to thank everyone who subscribed today and who gave bits. Karish and Bacchus and Rissa and Reaper resubbed. Thanks for the resub. Farah did a resub. There might have been others that I have forgotten. I appreciate all of y'all being here. So there is a fellow member of the genderful community who is starting her stream right now. And I will tell you, so we're gonna go raid Ender, and she is a newer streamer, so I've noticed that she's definitely a little bit less chatty than I am or we are. But I still think it's important to support fellow genderful beings. So please, if you haven't followed Ender yet, let's give her a follow. Let's give her our support. Hang out and give a lurk if you can. Ender on Twitch and YT. We will be doing just some, you can copy paste this into Ender's chat. If you're a sub, the first one you can use. If you're not a sub, the second one you can use. And yes, let's go support other trans folks. Thank you for spending your time this afternoon, this evening, talking about gender and like spending time with some trans people instead of whatever mainstream media you could have consumed instead. I appreciate all of you being here and spending time with us. And yeah, we'll do another Ask Me Anything. I'm gonna guess in 2 months. Next month we're doing surgery recovery. So yeah, I'm not gonna be streaming like almost at all or at all for the month of January. Just so folks know. I'm not dead. I'm just taking care of this lovely being who's having very important surgery.
Yeah.
10 out of 10
I would
important.
actually be interested in doing an Ask Me Anything after that, like at some point.
I was thinking of like doing like a vlog, like a little check-in vlog for like 20 minutes each day.
Oh yeah, I think I could totally do that.
I mean,
I might be
you don't
drugged
have to
up
even
for
be in it for part of the days if you wanted. But
sure.
just with my phone, it'll be a much lower production. It'll be just literally like a webcam FaceTime call. But
There's a lot of unknowns that I'm gonna start knowing.
9 seconds, 8 seconds.
Check it out at some point.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, friends.
See you tomorrow.